listeners of the past, present, and possibly New Year in
That's
some
true.
places.
Which it is actually the future. We've realized a few minutes ago in places like Australia, in other places, it is the future right now. It is already 2025.
Yes.
But of course, where we are, it is still 2024. Now, continue your introduction.
Welcome to Haddonfield Radio. As always, I'm Joe Francasio, and with me is...
My name, as always, is Christian White, and we are so pleased as punch to have you guys here celebrating New Year's Eve here with us, Haddonfield Radio, for our Happy Horror Days Part 2
the
live
New Year's
stream.
edition.
Yeah, that's true. We decided to do this year's Happy Horror Days celebration on New Year's Eve. Whether that was a good idea in terms of programming or not, I guess we're all going to find out together.
Yeah.
But I can already see some of our closest Haddonfield Radio friends
Our most
are
faithful
already here. Of course, Spooky Halloween Gal, Mike Hatfield. Who else we got here on the radar? Anybody else that we've noticed on commenting so far?
Not yet, but they'll be here. They'll be here.
We love you guys. We're so happy that you guys joined us here in Joe's basement. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a little spoiler.
Corey Bird, hello.
Corey Bird, hello. We love you. Thank you for joining us. I want to give you a quick spoiler, something you can look forward to at some point in this live stream. We are going to show you Joe's basement. We're going to do a remote camera, if it works, that will show you some of Joe's incredible Star Wars droids that he's created.
Well, it's always a tease when we're mentioning them, right? And we're like, they're right over there.
Yeah, they literally are right over there.
It's not like it's a droid workshop.
Yeah.
It's not like the nicest looking place, but there's a lot of droids over there. So hopefully it'll work.
I just am really, really happy. I love doing these live streams. Honestly, some of my most happy memories of creating any content for Haddonfield Radio has been these live streams where we get to hang out with you guys and just talk about movies.
I'm fighting so hard to do the old, can you guys hear us? But I'm assuming by now they would say so.
I would assume that
we're good.
Let's hope. Or maybe they're just glad not to be able to hear us.
I know.
That could be it too.
Technology tends to thwart us when we try to do the live streams. Hopefully we get to do calls again later on.
Yeah, we're going to try. If you tuned into our last live stream, our Halloween special, our second annual Halloween special, we introduced a new segment to our live streams where we take callers live on the air, just like the classic days of talk radio, like you'd listen late at night to Art Bell while driving cross country, and you'd hear all these unique and eccentric callers from all over the world. So we're going to be taking your calls live a little bit later on in the evening. And last time it was a lot of fun getting to actually hear the voices of some of the people who we've been getting to be friends with over the years. So hopefully more of you will call in this time. And I also want to point out a couple quick things. Number one, check this hat out. This hat right here, a Return of the Living Dead hat, a Dan O'Bannon classic, was a Christmas present from the ultra-talented artist Mike Hatfield, who is, of course, doing a lot of the Season 3 art for us for Haddonfield Radio.
And
thank you so much.
And Video Vault, the guy, like I keep saying, he's just part of the team. It's like the three of us, really, now. I mean, he does a little bit of everything. I mean, sometimes we're even just like throwing ideas back and forth about drawings, and he's showing me other stuff he's working on. I mean, it's
a very prolific, talented artist. And again, if you guys love horror art, a lot of the people in watching right now, you guys already know Mike Hatfield's work, but just in case, check him out. Yeah, right over here. Where is it? Is it over there? You can see it.
The Halloween 3 original art he sent us. That's what's beautiful about it. I love seeing where you can actually see the strokes and all the lines, and it's beautiful. Mike really is an amazing artist.
Just noticed HB3 Electric, one of our oldest friends here, tuned in, checking out the New Year's Eve live stream. Just wanted to say hello and that we love you. It's been a crazy 2024. It's been a crazy last little period of time for Joe and I, that's for sure. If you're a listener in the present, the most recent episode we've dropped of Haddonfield Radio, we released about 2 weeks ago, episode 23, the Friday the 13th, 1980 episode.
After a bit of a break.
Yeah, we'd had a little bit of a hiatus in
nice
between
to be back.
season 2 and 3. And the episode sort of has taken us by surprise a little bit. If you notice the general views of most of our episodes, they're trust me, one view is something Joe and I are proud of. As long as it doesn't matter how many people are watching our videos, we really honestly don't care. It's as long as the people that are watching are entertained by them and are enjoying them. That's really all that we care
Cheesy
about.
but true.
But to see literally almost 50,000 views of that episode is kind of weird.
The channel's had a little bit of a jump as of lately. As we were getting ready to do season 3, I mean, I think last live thing we did, we had 1,500 subscribers.
The day that we recorded the last live stream, the Halloween, second annual Halloween special, was basically the day we hit 1,500 subscribers. And Joe and I were like completely over the moon about that.
Wow, we finally hit 1,500. And then, through, I don't know, some ads and different things we were doing with the channel.
Well, it's all Joe's.
Yeah, well, even just small stuff besides the ads that were made. We're up to, what, 34,000 subscribers now.
Sort of exploded.
To all the new listeners that may eventually watch this, hey,
I just hope if you are a new subscriber here, a new member of our little community here at Haddonfield Radio, let us know. Say hello in the comments of the videos, because anyone that's been a faithful listener, a long-term listener will tell you, we try to really have a relationship with our listeners. That's literally why we do these live streams, so that we can
we got Christmas
touch
cards.
base with you guys.
Thank you, Spooky Halloween Gal,
so
Swaggy
kind.
G, Mike Hatfield, all you guys sent stuff. We got everything. We love it. It's amazing to I just like getting a piece of mail that says to Haddonfield Radio.
It's so exciting.
Look, the little things.
Just knowing that what we're doing is entertaining to you guys, because at the end of the day, I've said this before, and it's not like to sort of self-deprecate or to diminish anything, because Joe and I really do put our heart and soul into this YouTube and this Spotify, our Haddonfield Radio thing. But at the end of the day, really what we are trying to do is create entertainment for you guys. So if there are things that we could be doing better, or if there's a way that, the episodes could be more palatable or entertaining to you, let us know. If you're a new subscriber or a new listener and you have thoughts or notes, let us know. We love to hear constructive criticism. We love to hear what you like, what you don't like, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to create something that will be pleasurable and relaxing and entertaining and nostalgic for you. And that's the truth.
That's a big word. I'm so stuck in my own childhood nostalgia lately. I love anything that brings me back, all sorts of old shows and
well, I mean, we are definitely.
We're
in an age where nostalgia is being packaged to especially people of our age group. Now, Joe and I are at the very tail end of our 40s here. This is my final month of my 40s. And for our Generation X, I mean, nostalgia is like peddled to us like a drug.
It is.
You see it across all spectrums of media now. It has really inundated almost everything that is sold or is marketed towards people of our age group.
Everything old is new again.
Like if you're between 35 and 60, chances are 90% of the media that is being marketed towards you as part of a Leviathan or a group has something, it's based in nostalgia. We can all see it. And it's funny, the other day I was out on one of my walks, and that's where I do a lot of my thinking about the show, and I was thinking, I'm so sick and tired. Well, Robert Eggers, Robert Eggers, the director, most recently just released the movie Nosferatu, his version of Nosferatu, which was a huge success last weekend. $40 million over Christmas weekend in domestic box office for essentially sort of a little like antiquity horror film by almost like who I consider almost like the Wes Anderson of horror, Robert Eggers.
Right, yeah.
To have that size of a hit is pretty substantial. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yep.
But what got me onto Robert Eggers? What was I talking about?
Nostalgia and...
Well, all of a sudden he's saying now that he has the opportunity to potentially remake Labyrinth. And as I
Oh
was
no.
walking, I'm thinking, and I'm listening to this interview with him, and he's clearly very passionate about Labyrinth, as a lot of people of our generation are, in terms of it being a movie. Brian Froud, Jim Henson, George Lucas, and all the rest. It's part of our the kind of the tapestry of our childhoods. But it really bothered me to hear a director of the singular vision of Robert Eggers. Now, of course, you could say, well, Nosferatu is a remake or a retelling of one of the oldest horror stories there is, which is Dracula. Okay, yes, but he's putting his own kind of ornamental stamp on it as a creator. Whereas you could have five songwriters do a version of the same song and you're going to get five different songs. That's how I see Robert Eggers working within IP like Nosferatu. And I hate to call something like Nosferatu IP. It's like a degenerate term when you're connecting it to something with the historical legacy of Nosferatu or Dracula. But I hope he just continues doing his own original visionary work as opposed to reestablishing or repackaging
Why
the
would
past.
you need to remake Labyrinth? It's
still relevant.
The things that are dated about it is kind of what makes it
charming.
Yeah, exactly. And David Bowie, I mean, you can't.
It just
Anyway,
I think what I'm trying to say
yeah.
is what really surprised me was to see that this idea of manufactured nostalgia within our media landscape has even sort of trickled into some of the great artists of the time in their decision making as to what they're going to put their creative time towards. I mean, it could very well end up being this brilliant retelling of Labyrinth. I mean, for all I know, that could happen. But it's still a repackaging of something that's already had pop cultural significance.
And it's very 80s, and 80s are very in right now,
right?
And everything else. So,
but then again, here I am complaining about the repackaging of nostalgia when, of course, and this is what occurred to me when I was on that walk. Well, that's exactly what you and I are doing.
Oh, of course.
I mean, we're literally repackaging nostalgia for you guys.
I love anything that brings me into that nostalgic past. I really do. I'm a sucker for it. Why not?
I just want to say a quick hello to Default018. What is going on? I love you. Joe loves you. So glad to see you here. One of our friends from the past here checking in. Just every time I see one of your names pop up in chat, if you guys are watching, leave a hello on the chat so we know you're out there and we know you're watching. We can say hello to you.
Have a drink with us tonight, folks. I'm having
Joe
a little rum and coke. If I start
explain
slowly,
the rum, though. What is the rum?
Going to the left a little. Just
I'll
let
grab
me
him
know.
and I'll pull
Yeah.
him. Tell him
Anyway.
about the rum that's in this rum and coke.
Okay, I'm talking about nerdiness. Well,
Pretty nerdy.
My wife and I, we like to get all of our booze from the Star Trek Wines and Spirits website. Did I just say that out loud? Hey,
That's
they,
rough.
they make some good stuff. That's
No,
all I'm saying.
I'm joking. I love
We're
Star
not
Trek.
huge drinkers, but they make some nice. The ones we really like is when they recreate like the bottles that were used in the 60s and stuff.
Exactly.
In
right.
the
That's
movies
cool.
and all that. Anyway,
And actually,
I got
James-
some Star Trek rum and coke going on here. So
In James
Happy New Year,
Kirk's,
everybody. Yeah.
private chambers in I remember vaguely in some of the original Star Trek films.
Yeah.
I remember there was always interesting like bottles of alcohol on his shelves
Everywhere.
in his private chambers. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
Yeah. The show used a lot of cool looking bottles for various things.
You know something just to mention it, speaking of nostalgia, something I am super nostalgic about. I'm not as big of a Star Trek devotee as Joe is.
Yeah.
Joe has literally crafted his master bedroom here in this house to look like you're on board the Next Generation Enterprise. And I'm not joking about that.
I have to find a middle ground because I'm so
Good luck.
Star Wars, but my wife is so Star Trek.
That's true.
Right? So and I love both, but she doesn't have as much love for Star Wars as I may for Star Trek. So things that I do upstairs that are ultra nerdy or go Star Trek-y. Hence the Star Trek bar, the Star Trek bedroom, and the basement, my sort of realm a little bit more is where all the Star Wars stuff.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
You know.
It's fine. Hey, you've got to live your life. You're 50 years old, and you're not going to change at this point. This is who you are. This is the decisions
I think I know where you were going. We were going
What?
to talk about the Star Trek video that
No,
came
what
out.
it is. Well, we're gonna bring that up in 1 second.
Okay.
As an addendum to this.
I thought that's
all
where
I
you
was
were
going to
going.
say is something. Even though I'm not a huge tremendous Star Trek nerd.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm personally very nostalgic for is some of those early Star Trek movies. In particular, The Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock. Those two right there.
Well, 2,
but
3,
more
and
than
4
ever,
are like a trilogy.
I was just
going to
say,
that like are
Voyage
just
Home
perfect.
really resonates with me because I saw that one in a movie theater.
That was my first Star Trek I saw in a movie theater as well.
The reason why I think that's the case is because that was, to me, the most pop cultural of all the early Star Trek movies. It has a lot of pop culture in it because, of course, it's set on Earth.
And if you were young and not a huge Star Trek nerd yet, a lot of it is in the past, which is current time. When the movie came out.
Right.
So you're not being sucked out of it too much. There's a little space stuff in the beginning, a little bit at the end.
My guess is the Star Trek 4 was probably part of the engineering of the idea of it was to broaden the appeal of Star Trek by bringing it into like the quote-unquote real world of the 80s.
Leonard Nimoy directed it. And he was the guy who really pushed the whole saving the whales theme and all that.
And that's so of the 80s, that Save the Whales theme. And I'm very nostalgic for the music. Was it Jerry Goldsmith that did those scores? I think that might have done those
not
scores.
Star Trek 4, but yes, a lot.
And I even have a soft spot for the newer edition of the original Star Trek the Motion Picture, which I still think has one of the coolest antagonists in the history of sci-fi, which is V'ger, that's evil satellite that's sort of based on Voyager, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That is a movie you might want to revisit if you're a sci-fi nerd, going back and what is that more recent version of motion picture?
It's just the director's cut. But if you can if you're someone who gets into some of the longer, slower sci-fi, that movie definitely works well in that realm. It's just very different than the rest. But it's Robert Wise. I mean, the guy was a great director. It wasn't like they had some chump. It just had a tone that was.
It was very 2001. It was really heady. Yeah. It was intellectual. And yet that was very original Star Trek.
It was, but there were productions. Star Wars had become a hit. Star Trek the Motion Picture was supposed to be a TV series and was going to be, but then Star Wars became a hit, and they said, whoa.
Let me stop you there. Yeah. So what you're suggesting is the idea would have been to bring the original crew back for a new version of TV?
Some of them. Nimoy wasn't coming back. It was called Star Trek Phase 2. You can look it up on YouTube.
Wow, I've never heard about that.
There's some test scenes and all that. Anyway, Star Wars makes them turn it into a movie. But, it was one of those rush productions and no money. And so that's why a lot of the stuff on the bridge is very dark. And they just weren't totally ready. They were just racing to get it out.
I want to point out, I pointed out this incredible
Star
hat.
Trek lesson for you guys.
Return of the Living Dead from Mike Haddonfield for Christmas. And it is not going to leave my head for the duration of 2025.
Yeah.
I also want to point out something. I'm going to be doing something that very well may be a first in the history of live streams. I'm going to be doing a costume change midway through the live stream, and there's a pragmatic reason why, and I'm going to tell you what it is. If you may have noticed, and I'll show it to you real quick. Okay, this amazing item, this amazing garment, is one of two incredible hoodies my lovely mother gave me for Christmas. My mother created a literal horror movie Christmas for me this year. That was unbelievable. The gifts
were
were
standing at the Christmas tree with a bloody axe.
It was like all exactly. It was just
Christmas,
all
Christian.
Incredible, thoughtful horror gifts. It was like one of the greatest Christmases. It was like being an 8-year-old again. But since she gave me two hoodies and I loved them both, I've decided I'm going to feature them both on this episode.
All right.
This is the first, and the second one will be coming later on. So just get ready for that.
I was gonna get some like party hats and stuff, but you burned me so bad on the
Halloween costume. I did burn you.
You know what? I'm not gonna do it.
I really was hoping you were gonna have those little things that go like that. Just do that little Happy New Year.
I think I have some Roman candles left over from 4th of July.
Well, you got to get those Roman candles. Let's start a basement fire. Happy 2025. You're living in a Ramada Inn now with your family. Happy New Year. So what do we got here? What do we got? Let's read a couple
They
comments
don't
here.
want you to take your shirt off on air. So
Nobody
far,
wants me to
so
take my
it's-
shirt off on air. That's sad.
Yeah, well.
What
Hey,
about body positivity?
I want to mention really quick because we slipped it in there.
Yeah.
The music you heard in the very beginning.
Oh, yes.
That was a song by us from when we were in
One of our
old
bands
back in the day, The Cringe, and
Well, we realized that we're getting dinged left and right for having copyrighted this, copyrighted that, connected to our video. So we're trying to have some stuff that we actually created, but I am going to copyright strike Joe for using my
I have
vocals
to pay
without
you
my
to
permission.
use our old music.
If
Oh,
you
man,
thought that
thwarted again.
screechy, obnoxious voice of the singer in the original opening song, well, that was me. That's right.
I think
was
the beginning
singing.
of the song got
And
cut
Joe was
off,
playing
but-
the guitar.
Yeah.
All right.
That was a song called
Miracle
Love is
Mark.
Steel.
Yeah, Miracle Mark Wilcox was the drummer, and Paul Souza
Yeah.
was the bass player. One of the great bass players, and I would say literally, and I'm not kidding, one of the great rock and roll bass players, I would say, of Rhode Island history.
He's the only one from the band that's still out there rocking it.
Still gets out there dragging the equipment to gigs and this and that. I mean, I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
But literally, Joe and I were in a band with Paul, one of the great. In Rhode Island, just to let you guys know, Rhode Island is one of those states, even though it's a very small state, Rhode Island has a very colorful kind of band and local music history. And Paul Souza, our bass player for a couple of our bands, he is a absolute Hall of Fame, first ballot,
Yeah.
I think, Rhode Island musician.
Yeah,
So,
he's played in 5 million bands. But yeah, that was some music we did, and that was geez, I want to say like 2005ish or
yeah,
something. That was
that
a while
probably
ago.
was right around there. Yeah.
Punk folk, we called it.
Yeah. Back when that was
And,
our thing. That was like pre-YouTube, where you would go, if you were going to have a gig, you would literally go and staple flyers to telephone poles. That was our version of Facebook back when we had bands, or Instagram.
we were pretty hard though. We got in some faces and
Yeah.
said some extreme things.
It,
and
it was kind of a combination of music, comedy, performance. It was sort of a melange of.
If you remember in our other live stream,
obnoxiousness.
we sort of teased a little bit of
Yeah.
our old radio show and what we used to do, playing other characters
In the
and
radio
had to
show,
solve their lives.
yeah.
Well, that band.
It was a spin-off of the band.
We
really.
had to. The band is something we made up for our radio show, and then eventually we had to make it a real thing,
Right.
Because people were calling in and be like, "You said you're in this band. Where's the music?" So we had to actually put the band together. Next thing you know, we're playing gigs out there. So it was like a performance art, but we were also really writing music and music.
I was thinking of
we
the other day.
liked, and,
I
you know,
think over that decade, Joe and we probably wrote over 100 songs, probably.
between all the different
and I
bands
mean,
and
in
stuff,
recorded
yeah,
and
yeah.
the whole thing.
A lot
But
of music.
I just want to mention HB3 Electric just had an interesting comment. Watched Smile 2 last night with the old ball and chain. For those who have seen it, thoughts? Well, it's funny he brings that up. In a couple minutes, we're going to break down my personal list of my top 10 films, my top 10 favorite movies of 2024. Of course, one of the movies on that list, undoubtedly, irrevocably, was Smile 2.
Now-
Parker Finn's Smile 2, which I personally found to be. I texted Joe the night I watched it, and exactly what I said was, go ahead.
No, I just want to preface this because
go ahead.
I feel like I need to say that I did like the movie and it's entertaining, and I feel like because I'm not quite on the same page as you, you're taking it as like you're ready to like defend it all the way. I did really like it. I just maybe not the masterpiece you thought.
My text
But
to Joe was, Smile 2 is a modern horror masterpiece. And
Yes.
I'm going to fight that argument,
Okay, yeah.
because we're going to be going through the top 10 movies of the year. We're going to discuss and debate them. Joe's seen just about all of them on the list.
I watched a lot, but I, like we were talking about earlier, I definitely have been also lost in revisiting some movies from my
Right.
youth, the nostalgic thing going on. So
Well, it's more like
it's a mix, you know.
Joe is going to essentially be reacting to my top 10 list. And I want to really make a quick clarification. I've mentioned on Haddonfield radio before, I'm really big with lists. I make lots of lists. I have my favorite top 10 of the year going back like decades. And I use that word favorite on purpose. I never make lists about what is the best thing because, of course, that's so subjective. So I always just like to say my favorite films of the year and just frame it that way. So that's kind of the paradigm we're going to be working with. We're going to jump into that. But we have kind of an extended discussion about Smile 2 coming
Yeah,
up this
yeah.
episode, considering last year at this time for our Happy Horror Days Part 1 live stream, which you can find under the live tab right here on our YouTube channel. We broke down the original Smile short film as well as the first Smile film. So we figured now that we were doing this second annual Happy Horror Days, we would now break down Smile 2. I even brought some visual references to point out some of the incredible subliminal detail.
We're just gonna pull down.
Yeah, well, the old, what did you call that thing? The old, remember the thing it had like you placed the paper on the light.
The overhead projector.
The overhead projector.
Yeah, sure.
Remember the old overhead projectors back when
And
we
you
were
had
in
to
elementary school?
Clean it off with the spray after you drew it. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love those.
Anyway.
Talk about nostalgic. That's nostalgic, and they don't exist anymore, like telephone booths.
Oh, they'll come back. I mean, they're bringing back VCRs. We mentioned, I remember a while ago, oh my God, they're for the first time in 18 years, they're putting out Alien Romulus on VHS. I think there's been 3 or 4 more movies that other companies are now putting. Terrifier 3
quickly,
is
just
also coming out on VHS.
mention that again. Just for those listening who don't know, mention exactly what you were just referring to.
Well, it's the fact of the
With Alien
companies
Romulus.
are realizing that people want that older nostalgic tech. And Alien Romulus was the first movie in 18 years that a major studio had put out on VHS.
As literally, guys, like a mass release.
Yeah.
You
So-
can literally get that VHS. That is a fully functional VHS tape of that movie.
And there's been a few more releases since then.
It's a
Terrifier
great
3 is one of
idea.
them.
It's a great idea.
I don't know I honestly don't know if they think people are going to watch them or they're more for shelf, talking
I
pieces.
100% guarantee you that the idea of it is exactly that, a collector's piece. However,
I do wonder, though,
I would like to watch
Yeah.
Alien Romulus on VHS.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's
I want to see what that looks like.
this ties to a bigger thing that's even in filmmaking that I feel like we hit a peak of everything needing to be as high tech as possible, CG as possible, and then all of a sudden everything has started to look and feel the same, and they're kind of going, well, how can we make it different? And now they're going, well, let's go back to using models for effects, or what does something look like on an old tube TV for to have a different feel, a different aesthetic.
Right.
That old thing is new again. It's
And that's
I
really
think happening all over, really.
insofar as the example specifically of Alien Romulus. Alien Romulus, when I heard about this VHS release of that movie, it really struck me in an exciting way because of all the movies that I think was released in 2024 that would actually look really good on that VHS format, I think Alien Romulus is that. I honestly wonder if it's in that VHS pan and scan format because even just seeing that movie in the movie theater, and we're going to cover this in a little bit more detail in my top 10 list in a moment.
It's in there, yeah.
But after we just talk about this, we'll jump right into that. But if you guys saw Alien Romulus, like Joe mentioned, the wonderful use of practical effects, the staging that felt very much like a classic Alien film, like the Cameron's Aliens or Ridley Scott's Alien. Even the little notes that reminded me of Jean-Pierre Junet's Alien Resurrection, which actually I'm a real big fan of that movie. I know a lot of people really either slept on Alien Resurrection or just, cast it out of their mind. I don't really get why. Jean-Pierre Junet, at that time when Alien Resurrection was made, was one of the premier visualists in cinema.
What year did that one come out?
I'm guessing that was probably 97. I'd have to look it up. Want to look it up? We'll look it up. We have this funny little thing called the internet nowadays. You don't have to wonder about anything anymore.
I can't bring up Alien Resurrection at all in my. Put your phone lower. It's flashing.
Sorry,
the screen.
guys.
I don't remember. Alien
1997.
Resurrection.
I was right.
Why is that one not coming to me?
It's the one that had Ron Perlman in it,
Oh,
Winona
yes,
Ryder.
yes.
It's interesting.
Yes,
If you
yes.
guys
Hello,
saw,
everything scary.
actually, one of the most controversial aspects of Alien Romulus, in my opinion, is the kind of the Easter egg that ties back to, and this is my interpretation, Alien Resurrection, and that is spoilers if you haven't seen Alien Romulus. Okay, spoilers here. But that last sequence with the what they call the offspring, which was this sort of half alien, half human hybrid. Well, to me, it reminded me so much of some of the genetic ideas that you saw in Alien Resurrection or in Prometheus,
Yeah.
or that offspring creature from Alien Resurrection that was sort of the child of Ripley. And it was sort of like
Oh,
a
right,
mutation of a
yeah.
human and an alien. It gets sucked out of the hole in the hull.
yeah.
And it's actually very. It's actually, Junet films that creature almost very sympathetically and even gave the creature the sound of like a human baby because he thought psychologically it would help to connect the kind of ugliness of it, allow the audience to sort of have empathy for it. And I noticed in Alien Romulus with that offspring character that was played by this like 7.5 foot tall basketball player, it just kind of gave me a feeling of that Alien Resurrection offspring character mixed with the engineer character and design from Prometheus and Alien and what was the one after Prometheus? Why am I blanking on it?
I don't know if I saw that one.
The one that came right after Prometheus. I can't believe I'm blanking on this title. Anyway, I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so why don't we jump in and why don't we just jump right into the top 10 of 2024, my personal favorite films of 2024. While they all weren't necessarily horror films, you will notice they're all genre films, which is not unusual for my tastes.
We're going backwards, right?
We're going to start at the bottom. And you know what? If it's in my top 10, it's a movie I loved. So it's not like any of these films I liked less than any of the others.
Alien
Covenant, Mike Hatfield, thank you very much. Again, it was one of the Alien entries that a lot of people weren't crazy about, even though it was a Ridley Scott film.
Yeah. I think I really gave up. At that point, I was just aliened
out.
out.
I've been telling you, you should go.
No, I know.
Did you see Prometheus?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I personally love Prometheus. I think it's brilliant.
When we circle over to
we'll talk
Romulus,
more about
that.
So why don't we start at my number 10? I'm going to just say
you have a tie for your number 10.
It is a tie. The first one I'm going to talk about is a very. Some of you are going to laugh that this is my number 10, but I make absolutely no apologies for that. And it's Godzilla X Kong, and I never liked that title. The New Empire, again, terrible title. The director of both this entry in what's called the legendary MonsterVerse series, which started with the 2014 Godzilla with Bryan Cranston, Aaron Taylor Johnson, went up through. The last two are really spectacular because they were directed by one of the great genre filmmakers of contemporary cinema, Adam Wingard. If you don't know that name, he's part of the group that created the VHS anthology series of movies. He also directed this incredible film called The Guest with Dan Stevens that's sort of almost like a homage to John Carpenter's films of the 90s. And it's a very, very cool movie with Dan Stevens. You got to see it if you haven't seen it.
Oh, HB Electric. Hold on. Yeah, we're going to talk all about that trailer. Don't you worry.
HB3 Electric, wondering about the Superman trailer. We're going to be discussing that coming up.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be doing that right after this top 10. So I've actually loved every one of these legendary, which is the company that makes the MonsterVerse films. I am a lifelong kaiju fan, especially Godzilla. Godzilla is so much part of the DNA of what got me into movies and Creature Double Feature on WLVI 56, where I was introduced to horror movies and Godzilla films. I actually was literally a guest speaker at the first two Creature Double Feature conventions that ever happened. That's how deep my fandom goes with like Godzilla and all that. Now, am I like an expert in details of Godzilla movies? No, but I just love that whole milieu of Toho and Godzilla. And I think I even love the Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie that was the 1999 American Godzilla film that most people
The
dislike.
Matthew Broderick one?
Right.
Yeah.
Because the design, most people, the Patrick Tatopoulos Godzilla design from that movie, a lot of people just dislike.
Well, I
Even
mean-
though Toho adopted that design as a separate Toho Godzilla kaiju, and he has a different sort of interesting name now within Toho lore, and is even in one of the Toho Godzilla movies where he faces the Toho Godzilla. So the Japanese actually have quite a reverence for the Roland Emmerich 1999 Godzilla.
Interesting. I found it more a product of, well, we just figured out how to do dinosaurs really well with Jurassic
That's
Park.
exactly what it was.
And we
100%.
why don't we apply it to Godzilla,
Yep.
and then we can have a new type of dinosaur movie.
And I don't think
basically,
it was. I'm so glad you just brought that that analogy, because I don't think it was any accident that the Patrick Tatopoulos, who was the effects designer for that Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie, the design of Godzilla looks very much almost like a T-Rex.
Well, and do you remember what a big deal it was about seeing it? Like, they wouldn't release everything, and if you remember,
I know exactly what you're going to
at
mention.
the time, I was a manager of a KB toy store.
Yep.
And so I got all the product early. We weren't supposed to open it and look at it, release it. And of course, I showed all you guys. I brought back to our apartment a
When
bunch
Joe
of toys
managed
or-
KB Toys, we used to. We were like.
I mean, Smaybe toys.
We were like basking in the toy nirvana of our lives when Joe worked there, and video games as well, because Joe would rip them off of all sorts of video games as well. I mean, he was the guy that was the manager. He was the guy, cataloging all the merchandise. So if
I knew the ones that were okay to
if
take.
a couple
Let's put it
copies of
that
Tony
way.
Hawk's Pro Skater went out the back door for a
boy, here
PlayStation
we
2,
go.
nobody was going to notice. But anyway, I will say, I've loved these legendary MonsterVerse movies. There's not one. I'll tell you them.
Yeah.
Godzilla 2014, Godzilla King of the Monsters by Mike Doherty, who made the excellent film Trick or Treat. There was Kong Skull Island by Jordan Vogt Roberts. Great film. I'm not crazy about all the obvious needle drops in that movie, but a great one of my maybe my favorite iteration of King Kong in that movie ever. And the King Kong that continues on into the Adam Wingard movies, which was Godzilla vs. Kong, and then Godzilla X Kong. My favorite of the whole series is Godzilla vs. Kong. I think that's I think it's a way better film than anyone expected it to be. But yet, what I think is so incredible about Adam Wingard as a filmmaker with these films is he was able to make Kong and Godzilla actual three-dimensional characters that were able to lead these last two films as expressive characters. And I found that to be a momentously fascinating feat of narrative storytelling, that you are following these giant CG monsters and feeling for them and believing in them.
Where does the Peter Jackson Kong movie fall?
Okay,
for
so
you?
Peter Jackson was originally going to create... Oh, you're talking about Peter Jackson's Kong, King Kong?
Yeah, like...
I used to refer to Peter Jackson's King Kong as Lord of the Rings 4 because he made that film so quickly after he was so immersed in those three Lord of the Rings films that to me it still feels like his Lord of the Rings muscles are flexing as a filmmaker on that movie, even though that was an emulation of what at that time was Peter Jackson's favorite movie of all time, and I'm sure still is.
Yeah.
And do I think it's a little self-indulgent in a 3.5 hour long running time? Of course, but at that time, nobody was saying no to anything Peter Jackson
I think
wanted.
he shot his shot, right? He was like, look, this is probably the only time they're
he
going to
left
let me
it
do
all on the field.
whatever I want, and
Right.
I'm going to do it. And
Am I opposed to the Peter Jackson King Kong? No. Do I think it has aged poorly over the last 15 or so years? Absolutely.
Yeah. And again,
Absolutely.
I
think it's badly
Jack
miscast.
Black. I really do for a lot of things.
But
he's
not in that.
He's not great
No,
in
no.
for everything, and that
He was woefully
ugh,
miscast
just-
in Peter Jackson's King
They
Kong.
put too much on his shoulders for that.
I think Adrian Brody is an incredible actor, but I don't think he understood the assignment that he saw his chance after winning an Oscar for The Pianist to cash in some paycheck roles, and
Yeah.
God bless him for doing that. Why not? And he decided to work within the framework of with someone he saw as a film artist still just working in giant blockbuster film, Peter Jackson, who he knew came from independent horror and had a lot of integrity as a filmmaker, as well as did his wife, Fran Walsh, and his other partner, Philippa Boyens. The three of them were like a trio who crafted the Lord of the Rings movies, King Kong, the Hobbit films, which a lot of people dislike. I personally love them. So, you know what? All I want to do is include Godzilla X
Yeah,
Kong just to show that I think there is space for appreciating a film like Godzilla X Kong as an actual work of art.
Yeah.
A giant consumerist, populist movie featuring historic Hollywood characters like Godzilla and King Kong. And it tickles my imagination even as an adult. And seeing that movie in IMAX, the same year I got to see Godzilla -1 in IMAX, that's a magical year for a Godzilla lover if I've ever seen one.
That was a great movie.
I don't know if there'll ever be another year like that.
I didn't see this one, so I'm going to stay mute on it. But I just kind of, I'm wishy-washy with my Godzilla and King Kong.
I just want to say hello to a literal YouTube amazing person, everything scary, an incredible creator, somebody who's just got a lot of integrity in the horror community and just a nice, great person. I just want to say hello to you, everything scary. Always have supported us at Haddonfield Radio, and I really, really, really appreciate you, and so does Joe.
I do.
Let's go to the next film.
Yeah.
Tied for 10.
Yep.
Of course, we have Dune Part 2. I think everyone can basically agree this was kind of a masterful adaptation of a very difficult novel to actually adapt.
Yeah, I mean, I did see this one.
We saw it in the movie theater together,
Yep.
actually.
And it delivers. I mean, it's my only complaint is that I just wish they spent a little more time in certain places, but they have to
like
fit
in what?
so much
Give me an example.
Well, the Baron's nephew there.
That played by Austin Butler?
Right.
Right. Fade.
I just kind of felt like he was a great character and a great actor, and he comes off very intense. He's not a throwaway thing, but he kind of came and went very quickly. The arc, in that movie, I kind of wish, I don't know.
You know what? It's interesting.
I don't know. I just wish I had more time with him, or it felt forced.
What's interesting about you saying that point, when we were watching it in the theater, I couldn't help but compare Austin Butler's performance to really one of the iconic performances of the 80s, in my opinion, which was Sting, who played Fade Harkonnen.
Yeah.
I've always said Harkonnen, but according to these movies, they say Harkonnen, and I kind of actually have sort of adjusted my own pronunciation because I kind of like the Denis Villeneuve pronunciation of Harkonnen. But yeah, it's like Sting had the same amount of characterization in the David Lynch version from 1984, I think, as I would say as Austin Butler did in this one. But the difference, I think, is that Sting is just bleeding charisma. Austin Butler is a very charismatic performer and actor, but he's not Sting. And he's not Sting in the mid-'80s.
But he shouldn't, should he really be
No,
compared to Sting
of course
with this
not.
version?
But
And-
that
yeah, I
was
know.
entering
Of
into my
course,
consciousness.
Of course.
I love what Austin
Of
Butler.
course.
I love the more muscular, venal, fucking hateful version of the character that Austin Butler brings forward in the Denis Villeneuve movie.
Well, I'll tell you who I love, and I can't think of his name. Who is this?
Javier Bardem.
Yes, I love.
Yeah,
I
he's
love his
always
character
great.
and him as an actor. He stood out to me. It was great. It was a great. Like you said. It's got to be a hard piece of literature to truly bring to life.
I read Dune the first time I was 14. And did I understand all of the themes and ideas in it? Of course not. But I was, at that time in my life when I was involved in children's theater, I was so in awe of the older generation of children's theater people that were now kind of like molding us as kids. And anytime any of those creative people would say, hey, you should read The Lord of the Rings, or you should read Dune, or you should read Sir Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever, you should read these great sci-fi horror fantasy novels, and I would eat that up. Our friend Larry and I would eat that up because it's something our idols were into. So Dune's been a part of my imagination for most of my life. And I think, especially in Dune Part 2, I just don't see how you could ever have adapted that novel any more appropriately and respectfully.
Yeah. I mean, the
And there's
David.
a timelessness to Denis Villeneuve's two Dune movies. I think you'll be able to watch these movies 15 years from now and they'll feel just as impactful if they were impactful to you as a viewer or as a fan or as a movie fan or whatever. I don't know what you guys thought of the Dune and Dune 2 or what you guys thought of the David Lynch one from the 80s.
Well, the
I
thing
love
was
them
that
all.
even when I was young, the David Lynch one is it was fun to watch, but it was hard to really follow and know exactly how everything was connected when I was younger. So that movie was always just weird, but I liked it. You know, the
Yeah,
effects
I
and
agree with
some
that.
scenes. But then this one though, it beautifully kind of maps out, and it gets to take its time. Right, it's not one movie. So it can take its time more. My only nitpick was that Christopher Walken did pull me out a little bit.
Well, here's what I was thinking. Christopher Walken, if you haven't seen the film, he plays Emperor Shaddam Corrino.
The Emperor.
Now, in the David Lynch movie, it was who was it? I can't remember who played it, but originally he wanted. I think he wanted to carry over Jodorowsky. Alejandro Jodorowsky, who famously was going to make Dune in the 70s, and he wanted Salvador Dali to play the Emperor. And I think David Lynch tried to make that happen. I could be wrong about that for his interpretation. The point I'm trying to make is that is the most eccentric character in that universe. And when I heard that they had cast Christopher Walken to play that role for Denis Villeneuve's version, I thought, well, this is almost like the role he was born, one of the roles he could have been born to play. And I found him so empty and boring in this.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever found Christopher Walken boring
it's like
before.
Christopher Walken just does Christopher Walken
And
now.
that's such a shame because there's such eccentricity to be played with in the Dune universe.
Yeah.
And yet I found his characterization very flat.
Yeah, I don't know how much effort he puts into creating characters anymore. If he just does his
Yeah,
thing.
and maybe he was directed that way.
I don't know.
Who
Anyway,
knows?
that was my nitpick.
Yeah.
But
Great films.
Good film. Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Sci-fi
Yeah.
masterworks that you should watch if you haven't seen. Let's move on to number 9.
And this is one we talked about before.
And I think in our last live stream, we really dug into Chris Nash's, I would call it already an all-timer in a violent nature.
Yeah.
Even if he makes subsequent sequels, which we now know he is contractually going to at least make one more film. Even if that's doesn't work or isn't as exciting to people or doesn't
But if it
fulfill
is a
the
hit,
potential.
do you think he'll do more? You know what I mean?
I was going to say, if the next one of these is like a Terrifier 2 situation where it just kind of, blows up a little bit further in pop culture, well, this thing will be, in a violent nature, will become a franchise. No question. The character of Johnny, the central antagonist of Chris Nash's film, is absolutely trying to be positioned, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of your opinions out there, as the contemporary Jason Voorhees. I think that's pretty much...
Well, and depending on how many they make, I feel like it's a hard mantle to hit if you're going to do one or two. It doesn't have any time to become such a cultural pop phenomenon. Like, Jason's a hard thing.
Oh,
but
of course.
They're
I'm not saying
they're
that.
definitely positioning themselves to to be like a Jason. But I don't know if he was like.
And I don't
until
wanna...
I saw Terrifier 3, I have to admit, this was my he was up and running to be a more modern classic
Slasher
staple
character
that would enter that upper echelon, and maybe he still will. But
So
of now,
are you saying you're
Terrifier
feeling
3,
you're not sure if Johnny will ultimately enter the
I
pantheon of
think
characters?
this will be considered great, and it might be considered great for a while. Can he ever be a Jason if
Like a
he's only
breakout
going to make
character?
1 or 2 films, even if they're great? You know what I mean? Like,
What did
Jason
you think
has
of
decades of
What do you think about the design of Johnny, the character?
I loved it.
From In a Violent Nature.
I loved everything they did. I mean, the film. I was really struck by the filmmaking.
Yeah, me too.
The very interesting long shots,
Which actually did, just for the sake of argument here, that exact kind of the nature of this film, not to use that word in the title, it actually did turn off a lot of horror
I can
fans as
see
well.
that. I can see that. Yeah. If you want flashy,
Like wham
in your
bam, kill
face,
like
you
a
know,
kill every 10 minutes.
because what they do in this film is they actually create tension with where they're placing their cameras. You know, that big scene in the shed at the end where everything's happening just like a little off screen, but and you're just seeing pieces of the killer going by, but you hear it all, and your imagination is doing more than what you're seeing. But because the camera just doesn't quite let you see the whole thing, you're like on edge more.
Well, yeah, you much like the original 1978 Halloween. In a Violent Nature is very much a perspective movie where you are essentially glued to the back of the head of Johnny and you are stuck with him throughout the entire runtime of the movie, regardless of what he's going to do. You're kind of stuck with him. I actually have come to really love the actual framing Chris Nash uses as his central perspective shot, his subjective perspective shot, where you're behind the character in a mid shot, essentially projecting yourself kind of through the back of Johnny's skull. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you never see his face. And what it kind of made me think about when I was first watching In a Violent Nature is, if you were doing a horror film or a slasher film similar to like a Scream movie where you don't know the identity of the killer, that exact kind of perspective shot usage where you obscure the front of the face and the identity, that could be used really beautifully, like in a film somehow, you know. And it's used very beautifully in A Violent Nature as a interesting new version of that subjective perspective shot.
Yeah, I'd say it's a staple tool of slasher filmmaking.
Yeah, right.
That develops, slowly from Halloween through Friday the 13th as the filmmakers kind of learn to use the point of view as a way to subliminally let the audience know when they're with the killer and not,
I just want to say a quick hello to one of our great friends, Haddonfield Radio, Christopher Felton. Hello, Christopher Felton. He's only able to stop by apparently for a quick minute, but that you have no idea how much that means that you would take a few minutes out of a busy New Year's Eve, whether you're working or celebrating, to come in and join us in Joe's basement. Thank you. I really mean that. That it really does mean a lot. Thank you very much. And why don't we've talked a bunch of In a Violent Nature in other episodes, so let's jump to in the next one.
It's hard not to just keep going, us.
Okay, this movie, I hate to use a swear word, but this movie scared the shit out of me.
Well, first, let's back
the shit
up
out of
just
me.
a little personal information.
Yeah, go ahead, here we go.
When Christian told me to watch this was on his list, I was like, there's no way. Because Christian has a thing with spiders.
I want to,
and I would say more than a
that.
thing. I have experienced Christian waking up in the middle of the night with night terrors where he could see spiders crawling over every wall.
They're always descending down from the ceiling
and this was like when we were on vacation and we were in a hotel and you were backing up, literally about to go out the balcony and over the edge if I didn't grab you because you thought. So let's just say that spiders.
Well, I have
deep
this
in your
weird.
psyche.
To this day, I have this weird thing. When I sleep somewhere I've never slept before, I don't know what it is, but I always have not just a nightmare, but like Joe mentioned, a literal night terror where I'm literally like sleepwalking through a nightmare, and I've nearly given Joe a heart attack, like he mentioned, like a couple of times in our 30 years together.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3 when Freddy's like puppeteering kids in their dreams. That's what it looked like. Christian's just being backed out. It was anyway.
I want to say,
yes,
I have been personally not only recording Haddonfield Radio and other creative projects in basements half of my adult life. I also currently live in my mother's basement. I know that's very attractive to all you ladies out there. A 50-year-old man living in his mother's basement with a 15-year-old chihuahua, as I've mentioned before. Hello, Walter. Hello, Wally. I love ya. But
do you
because,
just
wait, hold on.
When you leave, do you just you put a screen on and prop Walter up?
No, he's so psyched when I leave. He's thrilled. It's like his happiest part of the day. He gets to go be with my mom.
Swaggy G, thank you for the card.
We love you.
Thank you for the card.
Thank
we got it.
Thank you. We love you.
I was waiting for the live stream to reach out and let you know that we We got it.
I
Thank
just
you.
want to say the basement thing I bring up because
Yeah.
if you live in now, I don't live in like a dirty corner of a basement. It's a finished basement where I actually live, but you go through a regular basement to get to where my area. Yet, if you can't make peace with spiders, you cannot live adjacent to a basement.
How are you doing it?
I've had to just get over it. Generally, now I am not frightened of spiders anymore. I'm not exactly interested in a spider, sleeping on the pillow next to me, but I've made my peace with it. But I will say, this movie, Infested,
Yeah, it's a French film, we should point out.
it is a French film.
Yeah.
And I don't want Joe has some issues with subtitles
No,
at times,
don't
which
have
I get.
issues. I hate that I can't always just watch
Right.
exactly what's on the screen.
It's not for everyone.
Like I said, the French speak very quickly, so I felt like on top of the subtitles, they were moving so quick that some scenes would go by where I barely got to look really up. And so, I just wish there was an easier way to do it, but I love the movie. It had some beautiful cinematography.
And the reason what really had caught my attention about this film Infested, it's a Shudder original film. So if you're a Shudder member, which Joe and I both are, and we're not getting paid to plug Shudder.
It's worth the investment.
But
if you
Shudder's
like horror.
awesome.
Yeah.
And there's always great new stuff. And I want to say, if you're a fan of horror documentaries, Shudder always has great stuff, including one of the greatest chapters of one of the greatest horror documentary series of all time, In Search of Darkness. Mm-hmm. There's a brand new chapter of that, which is In Search of Darkness 1990 to 1994. I do own it. I just haven't watched it yet. If you guys don't know, there's at least 3 or 4 of them already, and they're 5 or 6 hour long horror documentaries. So it's like it's crack for horror lovers. So I knew it was this film Infested was on Shudder, but what originally caught my attention was this director is directing the next Evil Dead spin-off movie. Apparently now it's titled Evil Dead Burn. So it's the one that's going to follow Evil Dead Rise. Yep. And I will say, I'm there day one just based on this director's work in Infested. Mm-hmm. He pushed my buttons with this movie. Like Joe said, the filmmaking is really what I found very exciting. He's a true filmmaker, and he uses setup and payoff so beautifully in this movie.
There's there's moments when like a character has a spider in a case, like in his bag, and then all of a sudden that character gets thrown around, and you're just like you're waiting for something is going to make that spider get loose. And then it doesn't or it will, but there's always this little extra tension because you know where the spider is and you're just waiting for something to happen, just waiting.
There is a moment, I was mentioning it to Joe before we started recording.
Yeah.
It's funny, I just want to say really quick as a tangent. If you guys listen to Haddonfield Radio, you know I'm like the king of tangents.
Oh, man. There's going to be a lot tonight.
I have to say there was a scene in this movie that absolutely freaked me out. And it's the scene, if you've seen this movie, where one of the characters, one of the friends of the lead character, sort of getting webbed up by spiders, and he starts looking up at the wall, and out of the hole in the wall starts the first time you see one of these giant spiders that are like, I would say like the size of like R2-D2's head. like that dome, that's like the size of these spiders. And he just starts screaming, and I'm not even doing the scene justice. It's terrifying.
To me, I love, well, not love, because it's horrifying, is the web, the way they subtly have web in places on people. That you're just like, I'm like, so like, it's not even the spider. It's more the idea of
the
having that much web on me.
Of the webs on you. It's actually part of what terrifies me. And it goes back, actually, speaking of the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, it goes back to The Hobbit, the Rankin Bass, The Hobbit animated film from, it had to be either the late 70s, early 80s.
Rotoscope. They had that.
No, you're thinking of The Lord of the Rings by Ralph Bakshi, the animated Lord of the Rings.
I am.
I'm talking about the Rankin Bass version of The Hobbit. And the sequences of the talking spiders from The Hobbit, and they roll Bilbo up in the webbing. Well, that really is one of those things sort of indelibly burned into my consciousness as a kid.
And also the idea of a spider that seems to have motivation. Like it's
like thinking.
Yeah. It's doing something purposefully.
Well, this
It's
director,
like,
I'm glad you brought that
you
up.
know what I
'Cause
mean? Like
this
it's
director uses
horrifying.
that interesting suspension of disbelief movie trope where the bigger the insect is, the more intelligent it is.
It is. It's a slow build in the beginning where you're wondering, are these just poisonous spiders and they get loose and they're just going to do what spiders do? And then slowly you start realizing, oh, no, there's intent going
Like
on here.
as
you
they
know
get
what I
bigger,
mean?
they get smarter, they get
Yeah.
wiser, they get more thoughtful.
Great plans. Yeah. It's
And of course, I
anyway.
have no idea. I'm not an etymologist. If
Yeah.
is that the word for a bug? For someone
It
who
is
studies
tonight.
bugs.
It is tonight.
Now it is.
Yeah.
But I thought as a film conceit, it was very exciting and Infested. If I was to say one thing about it, if you love horror movies, this is a seriously entertaining horror film. If you enjoy that horrible feeling of discomfort when you're watching a creepy type of a horror film where you're just wriggling in your chair or in your bed or you're looking on your comforters to make sure there's no, you keep thinking you're seeing something moving in the darkness of your bedroom as you're watching it, then you have to see this film. If you enjoy that kind of experience, then you'll enjoy this film.
Yeah.
It's great. It's I can see why Robert Tapert, Bruce Campbell, and Sam Raimi hired this filmmaker and brought him into the Evil Dead arena.
He was smart. There hasn't been like a good spider movie in a while.
You know what is
I
a
mean?
great spider movie? Going back to the nostalgia
Oh
angle.
boy.
A movie that terrified me that I, again, originally saw, I believe, on WLVI TV 56 in my youth. And I want to say it's called Kingdom of the Spider. It starred William Shatner.
Oh,
And it was
yeah,
about
yeah.
a small kind of southwestern town that becomes overrun, and I don't remember why, these poisonous tarantulas.
Yeah.
And there's a scene that's really famous from this movie from the late 70s where Shatner's like seeing something moving around in the air duct on his ceiling, and he starts messing around with the duct. And when the duct comes down, the tarantulas all fall onto his face. And you can tell that Shatner really had these tarantulas, like a dozen of them on his face.
No thanks.
And in the next shot, he gets the spiders off the character, and he has these holes, like the fang holes all over, and you see his face like swelling. Now, maybe I'm misremembering some of the details of that scene, and I'm adding some special effects that weren't really there. But
and
that's
then Mr. Spock came and Vulcan gripped the
that was the
spiders.
psychological effect. I'll tell you, for many years of my life, the first thing I used to think about when I thought of William Shatner is I associated him with spiders, not Star Trek. It's funny how when we do these live streams, I notice how a lot of subjects kind of tie back to each other. Suddenly we tied back to Star Trek again. It's just a weird weaving thing. But anyway, Infested.
So next up.
Oh my God, guys. Another Shudder original. Another movie that was picked up by Shudder that otherwise probably would have been missed by most people in 2024. And still, I notice a lot of even pretty hardcore horror fans have missed this one. It's called You'll Never Find Me. You can find it right now on Shudder. And I have to tell you, if you like deeply atmospheric, immersive horror, almost bordering on folk horror, but I questioned whether I wanted to throw that folk horror handle in my descriptors for this film because I know folk horror can be a bit of a turnoff for some horror fans. I'm not the biggest, I'm just not as knowledgeable as I should be about folk horror. But from what I do know, in my mind, and maybe others might disagree, this sort of has this folk horror feel. And I think the film is either from New Zealand or Australia.
Okay.
It is essentially a two-hander, which means it's two characters, two actors, in a one enclosed set, which is it's two characters in a trailer, like just somebody's trailer, during a horrible stormy night. And they're basically strangers to each other, and I don't want to say too much because the joy, in my opinion, now Joe didn't see this one yet.
This is one I didn't get to see, no.
And that's actually good because I think the less discussion about this movie, the more you will enjoy it.
Sure.
If you enjoy these types of films.
Who is there? Is there anybody recognizable? Is that
Nope.
somebody?
I think
Okay.
part of why this film worked on me so strongly is you don't recognize these actors. I looked up both of the actors afterwards, and I don't even think either of them even had a wiki. So they're regional actors, I would guess. And let me say something, that does not diminish their talents. These two actors in this film are, it's two of them, I think, two of the best performances of 2024 I've seen in media, not just movies or TV or any, just in media. I was blown away by this movie. I knew nothing about it. The only thing, what happened the night I watched it, I was just, just doom scrolling through Instagram. I saw one of the Instagram people I follow who just reviews new movies, and they were talking about this film, and it just sounded interesting. So that night, I just threw it on.
Yeah.
I want to just tell you this, and you too, if you're going to watch it. This is one of those movies, if you are going to watch it, it's not a movie you really want to sit with like a group of your buddies and have a bunch of beers and watch. It's not really a movie you want to watch like half attention span.
Oh, you really?
It's
gotta-
a movie you want to sit down, shut the lights off, immerse yourself, have the volume turned up. Because the sound design in this movie, and I think I mentioned this on the Instagram page when I was reviewing it, I actually think if it was if the Oscars, for example, were more fair and more realistic, this is a film that should get nominated for sound design.
Would you consider this horror?
I would consider this
Or
horror.
suspense?
Yes.
Horror, yeah.
I think suspense is a better word, or
Okay.
it's not really a thriller.
Okay.
It is
yeah.
an atmospheric horror film.
Is there gore? I mean, is there
Nope.
any blood? All right.
It is it's like you know what it's really like? It's like you're watching a play.
Ah.
Remember, I hate the fact I'm blanking on the title of it, but a number of live streams ago, we actually covered this movie. It had Sean Patrick Flannery. It was like his comeback role. He's a death row inmate who's possessed by a
Possessed.
demon. And it's basically the whole movie is just him and one other
Yeah,
actor.
what the hell was that?
It's a two-hander.
Yeah.
Let me look up the
Possession.
title
It's
because it was excellent. Hold on, guys. It's worth looking this
Anyway,
up.
hey, yeah. So let's say hi to Bay Area Throwbacks. What's up? Good to have you around. Happy New Year to you too. One of the faithful listeners.
The movie was called Nefarious.
Nefarious. Yeah, that was. I remember that took me by surprise.
I
and
think we covered it at
I
the
know it
last
had-
Happy Horror Days
yeah,
episode
it had
last
some
year.
weird
Well, the reason why some people didn't
ties to some
right-wing
theories
politics
and
or,
stuff,
or
but, yeah.
right-wing
ideology.
What it was is that Glenn Beck appears in the movie as himself
But you helped
and
finance
most
it,
likely
right?
helped
Yeah,
finance the film. And the directors come from other. I hate this politicization of art. But people would call some of their past work like right wing.
No.
I want to really say something real quick, and we never get political here, and I'm not going to start now. But one thing I really hate, like I just said, I hate the politicization. I hate that I can't say that word really, but of art.
Yeah. Oh,
I hate
I'm
that.
gonna wait till after our list. I have something actually to bring up that ties to that.
And for a while, I'll tell you, I didn't watch Nefarious
Mm-hmm.
because, and I'm not going to suggest whether I'm a right winger or a left winger or anything in between, but I just didn't like the political rhetoric I was hearing around the movie.
Yeah.
But what I started to hear was that Sean Patrick Flannery, who I've loved since Boondock Saints, since young Indiana Jones,
Yeah. Exactly.
when I was a young person, I heard that he gave like a career best performance,
really was.
which it is.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Nefarious, of course, in tangent here, you should watch it. But you'll never find me. You know what, guys? If you haven't watched it, put aside a night this week. Do me a favor. Put aside an evening. Turn out the lights, turn up the volume, and give this movie 90 minutes of your attention. I guarantee, like I've said this in the past, you'll thank me later. And I want you to watch it too,
Yeah,
because you'll appreciate
I
the
am.
sound design as a sound designer.
I screwed up. I don't know why. I thought I watched everything on your list. And
It's
then
okay. You did a great job.
It
I have to
wasn't
say.
until
You caught up on
like
everything.
yesterday. I went, oh wait, there's 2 movies I didn't see. But anyway, we ready to move on to the next
Yeah,
one?
guys,
I'm
I
excited to
hope
talk
this
about
is entertaining for you guys. I hope that covering these films. I mean, a lot of this is just if you haven't seen these films to recommend them and just to kind of cover the year of 2024.
Well, let's face it, we're going to be stuck for almost a year talking about
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
and thankfully so.
So it's nice sometimes to just be able to rattle off some, thoughts on other movies we get to see.
I mean, yeah, these live streams, next to the obvious benefit of getting to touch base with you guys, getting a chance to review contemporary films and up-to-date films for our listeners in the present, that's very important to me because I religiously listen to podcasts like Colors of the Dark on the Fangoria Podcast Network or The Movie Crypt, because these guys are, like, in my opinion, the tastemakers of contemporary horror, like Elric Kane, Rebecca McKendry. I mean, people like that, Dr. Rebecca McKendry, I should say, podcasting idols of mine. They are real tastemakers. And a lot of the stuff that I fall in love with every year, I find out from other podcasters. So all Joe and I want to do is just continue the next link on that chain, just trying to spread the word to the next group of people. That's all. So anyway, what's the next one we got next? Oh my God.
Let's talk about it.
Listen, guys. Of course, Furiosa is not a horror movie. Clearly, it's a genre film. But
it has its moments.
It has horrific ideas and elements and themes in it. But the reason I adore George Miller, the director of the Mad Max saga. I think if you're talking about pure muscular filmmaking, George Miller should be one of the first names that comes to mind. One thing about Fury Road, his last Mad Max film, and especially Furiosa, as a student of film that I found so interesting, is you can see how he shoots. I could be wrong, but I always feel like he shoots for the edit, in that he crafts his shots like pieces of an eventual edit of a sequence. And in doing so, you can almost watch the scenes without any sound or separate from the movie, and you can see them almost like little machines, the scenes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
It's esoteric what I'm saying. I hope I'm being clear.
Especially in these later films. Obviously, the early Mad Max films of the 80s, when did the original come out? Was that 70s or 80s?
70s and 80s.
Yeah. So, they technology and all that, but I did notice, like, watching this one, how it really had this, like, graphic novel almost,
like a patina of
it wasn't reality. It was an affected look.
That's so interesting. I mean? You just hit on that.
Like, there were times where you knew it was layered with the people are blue screened or composited, and then the background is sand, but it's never. They're not trying to go for realistic. It's layered in just a visually interesting way. And what's really interesting is his 100%. Use of speeding up the film.
Like that speed ramping.
Yes.
Zack Snyder uses it in reverse. He'll speed ramp to slow.
But George Miller was doing it way back. He was doing it in the originals.
Oh, absolutely. But he's mastered it now.
It's different digitally than when they had to do everything in camera.
Right.
It was a little more experimental. It was a little more, let's try these different speeds, and hopefully one of them looks good. Now they dial into what they want. You know what I mean? And the use of it. This movie felt more like the old ones, like in his filmmaking to me, in the feel of it, in the a little bit of the darkness. I don't know. Fury Road I like this more.
Well, Fury Road was designed to be a literal 2-hour chase scene.
Yeah.
So it's purely an action film.
Yeah.
Now, it had emotion and drama because George Miller, as a director, understands that action scenes only really work when the action tells a story.
Well, it's all the great directors will say that.
Right.
An effect isn't anything without a story. You know what I mean? Or a chase sequence or an action. And nothing is just, you can't make them just to make them.
Have we said hello to Bay Area throwbacks? You said
when
that?
you were looking
my
up
God.
stuff, I said
Bay
hello.
Area throwbacks. I missed that because I was paying attention to the internet.
But the performance
love you.
in
Swaggy
this,
G, I love you.
The performance in this movie that really caught me off guard was Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth is having the time of his life.
What a great
he's an
character to love and hate.
Well, he's an Australian actor. So for him, and I saw him in an interview talking about how having an opportunity to be in the Mad Max world is makes you like a national treasure in Australia. It's part of the national conversation in terms of filmmaking of Australia. And you're absolutely right. he understood how to play his character in a very charismatic and likable way for a bad guy.
There was a humor to him,
Yeah.
but obviously an extreme darkness. His character was named Dementus. And I don't know. I always get a little leery about like when they recast a character.
Like going from
Charlize
Charlize
Theron
to
to somebody
Anya
else, and you're
Taylor-Joy.
supposed to be like, oh, that's the same person. But this, it felt like it was all going to line up. Okay,
It
you know what I
was.
mean? By the end,
I have to say, it was my Achilles heel because I actually kept thinking throughout the first time I watched this movie, Furiosa, they just could have used Charlize and just de-aged her a little
maybe she just didn't
because
want
she looks
yeah,
still looks young.
yeah.
But I did think Anya Taylor-Joy was great. And I liked seeing her interpretation of the character that Charlize played in Fury Road. And I liked the way that Furiosa kind of drives right up to the edge of Charlize's performance,
Well,
even with Anya Taylor-Joy sort of emulating Charlize's voice towards the end.
And then they do a great thing in the credits if you stick around. They keep putting in snippets from Fury Road, kind of showing it all connect.
Right.
Without directly, I think, even showing you Charlize Theron, though. It's like they're implying everything. It's still this. It was just wildly entertaining. Obviously, in the typical way George Miller will do his anything with cars. I'm not a great big car guy, but I love looking at the machines that are created in his movies.
It's kind of funny going from like Dune 2 to this because these movies have a lot of, like I mentioned the word patina earlier, and I wanted to bring it back to that because interesting thing when you brought that up about Furiosa, about it sort of having that almost graphic novel kind of, almost like an unreality, like a purposeful disreality, the feeling of it, like it feels like a story or a movie or a dream. You know that for this film, George Miller and he hired a comic book artist to essentially take the script and create it into a illustrated Bible of sorts that he could show George Miller could show all the production heads. And so Furiosa, and I believe even Fury Road, derived from George Miller's obsession with pre-visualization through storyboarding. And of course, storyboarding is so similar to panel narrative development in comic books. And it's interesting going back to Peter Jackson before he shot all three of the Lord of the Rings films. He did a digital previs like you see commonly done now in blockbuster filmmaking, where they make kind of like a cartoony version of the effect sequences so they can see how the editing looks and how the shots are going to look. Well, Peter Jackson did. He animated the storyboards of each Lord of the Rings film before he made the film, and then screened those animated storyboards for the cast so they could almost see the film before it was even shot. So the directors, in my opinion, that are doing big bravura, kind of high concept filmmaking, they should really take a note from some of these classic directors who understand the importance of previs, understand the importance of just putting pen and ink to paper to visualize what's on the page in a way that takes the page and begins to, develop it towards the screen, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I just have a deep appreciation for with this film and with George Miller. I hope even though Furiosa was considered a kind of a box office bomb.
I know, it's crazy because everybody I know that sees it, it goes on and on about how great it was. It really is. And I'm not like a diehard Mad Max guy. Like I've seen them all. I've enjoyed them.
I love that.
But I'm not like really well versed in the world. And I thought this actually did a good job of giving you some little Easter eggs. Like in the beginning, you hear the radio broadcast,
yes,
and the TV broadcast talking about what's going on with the world,
and you do see Mad Max in this film.
Yeah,
he's like up on a ridge.
Yeah, watching.
It doesn't make a lick of sense why Mad Max would be there at that point, but he is in the film because some people thought or posited this notion that part of the reason why the movie didn't connect in terms of an audience was because how do you have a movie that's titled A Mad Max Saga without Mad Max?
But see, in a weird way, it worked better.
What some people don't understand is and this is my interpretation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think when George Miller is referring to Mad Max, he's referring to the entire world of this.
I know, but
more than just the character of Max Rockatansky.
And of course, the creator's vision is obviously what's right. But Mad Max, based on the way it came out in our world and pop culture, you associate it with, Mel Gibson.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
You're
it's a
absolutely
hard
right.
thing to, and I think that's why Fury Road, the whole time I think I'm sitting there kind of going, is this supposed to be the same? Is this Mad Max?
Well,
is this the same Mad Max? Is this...
and
then this one I didn't have to worry about that.
If you remember, in one of our Haddonfield Radio Trailer Park episodes,
I remember you talking
we
about
had
it.
an episode where we had Keith Voss join us as a guest. Keith Voss, if you haven't seen those episodes of our trailer park, you can find them in our playlists. There's an episode that in one of the Halloween trailer breakdown episodes, Keith appeared on the episode because he worked for a company that cut some of the most iconic trailers of all time.
Yeah.
And we got into a bit of a Mad Max debate because he's a huge Mad Max fan, as am I. And I kind of ascribe to this theory that has been kind of essentially debunked, but I still ascribe to it, that Tom Hardy in Fury Road is not actually the original Mad Max.
He's like taking up the mantle.
I always loved this theory that Tom Hardy is the adult version of the feral kid from The Road Warrior, who, as a child, was so awe-inspired by this one protective male figure that he ever came across that he essentially grew up and just took the name. But during the time period of Fury Road and Furiosa, I like the idea that the original Max Rockatansky's floating around in the wasteland somewhere. Mm-hmm. But apparently that theory that made its way around online, certainly not my original theory, that kind of fan theory about the feral kid being Tom Hardy, that was apparently debunked, apparently by George Miller. And I've apparently turned into that mean kid, the apparently. Apparently.
No, anyway, it was good.
I wonder if I'm an android, because I get stuck on words and I get like I keep saying it over and over. Or I'll notice in my normal life, like I'll say a word 40 times and I can't stop myself. It just keeps naturally popping out of me. And apparently today it's apparently. I just wanted to say hello to, how could we not say hello?
Hello,
Sandy Peterson. Literally one of our earliest listeners, has been here since the beginning, and we love you.
Let's move on to our next one.
Oh, wow.
Now, this was one I did not, this is the other one I didn't get to see, so.
Another movie that while you might, if the video stores still existed, it might not be classified in the horror section, but I might argue that would be a mistake. I would classify Love Lies Bleeding as a horror film. It's chock full of horror and body horror imagery. It has really gnarly violence. It has very adult, provocative themes. And I just think the general idea of the film, to me, is horrific. And so I classify it as a horror film. Interestingly enough, the director of this film's first film was that incredible independent film Saint Maud, which was a straightforward horror film. And if you guys have seen Love Lies Bleeding, look, I'll throw this out there right now. There are a lot of people out there that literally see Kristen Stewart and they just tune out. They just don't care for her as an actor. Well, I'm on the dead opposite side of that. I adore Kristen Stewart as a performer and as an actor. I think this is one of her best roles. And I know that's a hot take. Believe me, I get it. But to me, the real discovery of this film is Katie O'Brien, who you see there in the poster in the aquamarine-ish tank top. Katie O'Brien absolutely owns the screen every second she's on screen in this film. I think her performance, while she's made other films before this and has appeared other places, I would call this her absolute breakthrough role. There's another major breakthrough role that sort of is the only thing for me that edged her out of my favorite breakthrough role of 2024. We'll be coming up with that in a minute. But not without saying, Katie O'Brien is fantastic. A word I like to use when I'm talking, specifically when I'm talking about great acting, there's an adjective I use almost really just to describe great acting. Her performance in this is magnificent. It's a word I've heard Tarantino using to describe great acting, and I think it is the perfect place to use the word magnificent when you see like incredible, awe-inspiring, life-affirming, art-affirming acting at its best, at its most artistic. And in my opinion, Katie O'Brien, this is like a home run performance. It's one for the ages. And the movie I found incredibly entertaining. It's very, very lurid. It has kind of crime elements and, again, horror elements and body horror elements. And a lot of people talked about Coralie Fargett's The Substance as kind of the body horror film of 2024. As much as I was impressed by that film, didn't make my top 10 of favorite films of the year. I was impressed by it. Has a lot of huge fans. It's certainly a letterboxed favorite right now. But I actually thought Love Lies Bleeding was really the body horror film of 2024. I know that's a hot take, but I'm putting that out there. 2 hot takes for one movie. If you haven't seen it, give it a chance. It's excellent, original storytelling and filmmaking that's always kind of one step ahead of you. It's few and far between nowadays, and we've talked about this other times on Haddonfield Radio, where you find movies that contain stories that you don't already know.
Yeah.
Stories that you can still enjoy a movie that you know every step of where it's going. There's plenty of movies like Alien Romulus. I wasn't really surprised by any of the elements of that movie. It didn't stop me from loving it. The story was very comfortingly familiar in that case, but I still loved it. This was one of those films that had a story, like the movie from we talked about this year called Oddity, that had a very original, unique story at its center that is not a story you haven't heard told before. So it's refreshing and exciting as an audience member. So yeah, Love Lies Bleeding. If you haven't seen it, guys, watch it. Thank me later. You too.
I am. Yeah, I'm down.
Just mentioned that. I think we're in our top 3 here. Yes, we are. Our top 3 of 2024. I have to say, even though I am as we talked about earlier, we won't go on too long because we already sort of talked about this. But unlike Joe, I actually am like a really diehard, lifelong Alien mythos fan. I even think the Titan Books is a company. Recently, they're pretty well known because they put out the Terrifier 2 novelization this year. That was sort of like a real big collector's item. Everyone kind of went out that week it came out and was posting, myself included, pictures on Instagram when you would find it. It was hard to find in Barnes and Nobles. But Titan Books is a company that puts out a lot of. They just put out the X trilogy novelizations, X, Maxine, and Pearl as like really well put out, well designed little novelizations, kind of emulating the novelization craze of like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
If you loved a movie back before you had the ability to just get the DVD or see it on streaming.
Well, the books would come out before even the movies sometimes.
Yeah, you would get that novelization and you would buy the score.
Yeah.
So that was the only way you could really relive the movie at home over and over. And so novelizations, and certainly in the horror genre, novelizations have an incredible tradition. I mean, in the Halloween franchise, novelizations are a real important part of the DNA of the Halloween franchise.
Yeah.
If you're fans of the Halloween franchise, you know the novelizations are like precious collector's items. Even up to the David Gordon Green films, all 3 of those films have novelizations through Titan Books.
Yep.
They do a beautiful job. And I don't know how I got on that.
Did you read the novel for Alien Romulus?
No, I can't remember why. Oh, you know why? Because Titan Books does the whole Alien, extended universe books and comic books. And a lot of companies are trying to do this expanded IP that sort of Star Wars invented.
Yeah.
This idea that you have the main movies, then you have all these books and comics that tell all these sidling stories that sort of fill in little cracks or little details or little history or lore that become these beloved little pieces of the canon. Well, Titan Books, the books that have been released that support the Alien franchise are some of the greatest novelizations being written by some of the great writers of contemporary horror and sci-fi literature. So if you like extended universe storytelling, you could do a lot worse than the Titan Books Alien franchise novels and comic book series that even Marvel right now is doing a series Aliens versus the Avengers. I mean, and it's by Jonathan Hickman, who wrote the second iteration of Secret Wars for Marvel, one of the great Hall of Fame Marvel writers. So all I'm saying is I'm a huge Alien franchise fan, but
Back to Romulus.
but even though I love the director of Alien Romulus, Fede Alvarez, he
Yeah.
did 2013's Evil Dead. He did Don't Breathe. Great filmmaker. He actually made one of the Lisbeth Salander movies, the fourth Lisbeth Salander movie. I love Girl in the Spider's Web. I absolutely love him as a director, but I had my reservations about this film. I was a little bit worried because when they made this film, they were originally going to put it on Hulu, like they did with the most recent Predator film that was called Prey. But what happened is when Dan Trachtenberg directed that movie Prey, the most recent Predator film, it was basically dumped on Hulu and then got these extraordinary reviews. Some people called it one of the best films of that year. And I know that the company, 20th Century Fox, sort of regretted that they hadn't put it into the theaters. They would have probably made some money.
Yeah.
So they decided, let's not put Alien Romulus to Hulu, let's give it a theatrical release. And it really worked out very well in their favor because it was a big box office hit.
Yeah.
I think it really, even though I loved Prometheus, like we talked about earlier, and what was the? Why do I keep blanking on the one?
Resurrection.
No.
Or,
Mike Hatfield. What is the one after Prometheus? Alien Covenant again. I'm talking about what a huge fan I am, and I can't even remember the title.
yeah.
It's a mental block.
Yeah.
I had it earlier. I get these weird repetitive mental blocks. But anyway. What I think Alien Romulus does so beautifully is it ties all the other films together so neatly and so beautifully, and yet still has its own specific identity. What did you think?
It completely caught me by surprise. I wasn't even interested at all by the trailers. I kind of had been getting aliened out from all the Alien versus Predator and this and that. And you know, it was on your list, so I'm like, all right, let me watch it because I did hear some good things.
Because I had sold it to you personally to watch because of their incredibly exquisite use of practical model work and
Yeah, but you
and
know, that wasn't
practical
the thing
effects.
that got me. It was the cast. It was the
Totally
characters.
agree. Totally
like
agree.
I wasn't expecting, based on seeing the trailers and just seeing the hot young actors of the day or whatever up there. They did a great job of putting that sort of team of people together that's in this situation with an alien, and they didn't go too big. Like, I thought a problem with like Prometheus was there was such an ensemble, but there was no clear, to me, like lead, or like they just were all sort of together.
Well, one of the real complaints about Prometheus were that all the human characters in it are absolute morons.
Yeah, I don't
But
know. It's
I
just-
thought that was part of Ridley Scott's design, in that the whole idea of Prometheus is humans reaching out for their creators, and he positioned humans as these pathetic peons.
I mean, don't get
That
me wrong.
even the androids that humans created are far superior to these mud people humans that don't deserve to find their gods.
Prometheus isn't awful. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I
it's
love it.
just didn't have that fun element that I feel like
Well, yeah,
I
it's a very
hadn't
cynical
felt
movie.
since the Aliens era. The movie felt like
Alien
the
Romulus.
Yeah,
felt,
Romulus to
Yeah.
me had the feel and the pacing and vibe of the first two Alien movies, but with a cast that felt sort of new and fresh, and they were all great, and it wasn't too many people, and they were all cool little characters, and the android was really
The actor's
Well
name
done.
is David Johnson.
Yeah.
And I know that he is part of the cast of a television show on HBO called Industry, but I had never seen any of the episodes of that show. So as a performer, I had never seen him before I saw Alien Romulus.
Yeah.
And I think it aided
really
in
good.
my appreciation of his characterization. Honestly, Michael Fassbender as David in his two Prometheus and Covenant, he's really amazing. But I think David Johnson might be the greatest android character in the history of this franchise.
You feel real empathy for this particular android. But they did a great job of tying in a lot of little visual cues to the
yeah.
old movies. Obviously, you have they reprise
Of
the
Ian Holmes' character.
Ian Holmes.
Right.
Well, it's a
It's a different version of that android.
and then
right.
the original alien with Bishop. But it was such a great.
Well, Bishop was Lance Henriksen.
I mean, yes,
yeah.
right. But the name ties into that.
You're
right?
absolutely right.
So what was it? What was the android in the first one? Anyway.
Oh, Christ, why am I blanking?
Anyway.
Ash.
Ash.
It was
right.
Ash.
So my only problem was maybe they went just a little too long.
I didn't
right?
feel that way, but I hear you. I could have sat through another half hour of it.
The last 15 or 20 minutes, I feel like some
that's the big swing.
No, but I
of the
mean,
film.
I feel like some studio execs kind of came in and went, you gotta directly reference the old ones more or something like that, because they were beautifully riding this line of doing their own thing with just enough homages to the original movies and little Easter eggs. But then all of a sudden, by the end, they're quoting like Sigourney Weaver lines.
Yeah.
And,
when David Johnson says, "Get away from her, you bitch," I did roll my eyes.
Yeah, that was bad. And then the main character says something else too. That's like right.
Well, especially because I was going to note that when you were just talking about all the kind of hallmarks from the past films that are kind of woven into the tapestry of Alien Romulus, well, a lot of them that you, I guess, could theoretically call Easter eggs, they're woven in so beautifully and
they're not
seductively.
In your face. They're just
exactly.
Sort of there,
That line when he says, "Get away from her, you bitch,"
it's
was too on the nose. It's like when they trot out I'll be back in the later Terminator movies.
And they even like cheekily, like they give him a pause. So he says like, "Get away from her." And you're like, okay, maybe that's just going to be it. And then he's like, "You bitch."
I swear
like, they did it.
It was directed to assume there was going to be an audience reaction to him saying it. And that is so cynical.
I know.
Look, I loved the movie, but I can point out there's a couple things I could nitpick about this film.
Yeah.
But I've watched it at least 3 times.
Oh, it's fun.
And
it was
I
so much
thoroughly
fun to
enjoy
watch.
watching
Yeah,
it.
it was so much fun to watch, and I wasn't expecting it at all. The aliens looked great.
It made me think, like, I wish there was more sci-fi horror action movie hybrids like this, like James Cameron made with Aliens or Fetty did with this one, because I think that's where the Alien franchise fires on all cylinders, is when, much like a Korean film, it's sort of a modulation of not genres, but modulation of feelings. Like, it's sort of a horror film, it's sort of a sci-fi film, sort of, I guess it is genres, sort of an action film. It's sort of a mixture of those 3 films, or a hybridization of those 3 films, and like I just think that's why this film works so well, and it's very commercial.
Yeah, it feels like in sort of 80s blockbuster film.
Yeah, it
that
really
used to
did.
Be an action blockbuster.
And yet it doesn't feel like it's striving to be that. It feels like it just is that.
It wrote a perfect line of its own identity, but mixed with the DNA of the previous Alien movies.
So I'm saying, I mean, I placed this very high. Joe's dying. I may be on the Happy Horror Days Part 3. It might just be me.
All I know is when we watch the Superman trailer, my drink might magically get refilled.
Poor guy. He's like a bum now.
We're like way behind in
Yeah.
our schedule.
Okay, so let's finish it up.
I don't know. So let's go on.
Well,
we're going to have to like almost circle back to this after the list. But yeah, this was...
Yeah. Let me just say a couple quick things. We've talked at length about Smile 1 in the short film. I just want to say a couple quick things. First, why don't you start with what you thought of the film?
I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. There were some scares that I admit...
It has some of the greatest jump scares of the last 5 years.
Really, really hard.
And I mean multiple intensely effective jump scares.
I think I paused it at one point because I like kind of jumped up and had to like just sort of get it off of me for a second, you know?
I was watching it again last night just to prep for this, and I actually rewound a couple of them and watched the jump scares a few times. The artistry involved in the timing, the editing of Parker Finn, the director of Smile and Smile 2, and his team, is extraordinary. The only mainstream horror filmmaker I've seen in a contemporary sense that is able to execute jump scares at this level of precision is probably like James Wan at his finest. Parker Finn, what I think is so great about him as a director is he's balancing these two kind of motifs of this kind of popular, like the Smile films are a mixture of these populist, kind of almost like Blumhouse style horror films. And then he has these exquisite filmmaking and subliminal imagery and subliminal thematic material that is the something you would see in a film by like Ari Aster or Roman Polanski.
The thing he does with the upside down, like I remember pointing it out from the first Smile too. Like I don't know why it's a simple trick, right? You're flipping an image, and I'm sure to him, and if I really watched it and study it more, you could apply some sort of logic to when he's flipping the image and why. But I don't know, when it happens in these movies, it comes off so beautifully and so, I don't know, it feels right, even though you're just watching a shot upside down, you know?
Yeah, right. Another aspect of this film that really led me to feel like it's a masterpiece really is in the lead performance of Naomi Scott. She plays this pop idol named Sky Riley, who's the target of the
Gaga inspired character, right?
I think she's an emulation of a number of modern pop stars.
I couldn't not, like, she almost visually looks like her at times when she's in the get-ups anyway, that I mean, to me, it was just like, I couldn't not
see, I was
Lady
seeing
Gaga
her more
the
in the mold of like a Britney Spears, the more troubled pop stars.
Yeah, the character overall, I mean, like visually, like I couldn't look at her and not see Lady Gaga.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what, you know.
Right, yeah.
Yes, the pop star is different, right? But
I just thought her performance was so intense.
The opening of this movie was so good, and the just a perfect way to tie it directly to the end of the first movie. I love movies that can kind of pick up right from,
like, as though
you don't get that like 6
minute.
months later, and you have to kind of figure out what's happened to these people in between or whatever. And like, you know, we're back with that guy from the end of the first one you know why he looks all messed up in the beginning.
So Kyle Gallner's character, of course, who is possessed by the Smile Demon because he sees Sosie Bacon's character kill herself at the end of the first movie. This film, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a spoiler, I guess. This film opens with the consequences. It starts with, says 6 days later. Yeah. And you're in the last day of his possession, and he's desperately trying to transfer the Smile Demon to someone else through the only other way you can do it, which is to kill someone with somebody else witnessing it.
And he's like, if I'm going to do this, he's trying to pick like a bad dude to do it to, but it goes wrong. A
drug dealer.
And then you're sitting there like, oh God, it didn't work. And of course, there's that great reveal at the end of the dude who saw it. You're like, oh,
Parker Finn
this
does
is how
these,
it goes on.
Right in that opening scene, he does something where he did it a lot in the first movie, where he actually takes camera moves and makes smiles.
Oh,
like he does these 180-degree camera swivels. Which is a smile.
But it's part of the tension building too, because you know when that camera stops, it's usually on something jarring.
Oh, absolutely.
Or horrifically revealing.
And I took a few screenshots, and we're going to point them out here, because one of the things that I think Parker Finn is so excellent as a filmmaker is the way he so beautifully integrates, again, subliminal information and imagery, similar to, it reminds me of what William Friedkin did in The Exorcist. A lot of imagery you didn't even know you saw that helps to just work on the psychology of the audience and primes the audience for the more obvious impactful moments of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So can we jump in a couple of these? Let me show you a couple of little subliminal things I noticed real quick.
So
Just
we're
real
skip.
quick.
Okay, so we're staying on
And we'll
Smile.
come back
We'll
to
go back
this,
to the
yeah.
other ones. Okay.
As soon as a character is possessed, you start to notice the artwork, all that he uses in these sets always is very demonic in this movie. And in this image, you see the character there sitting on the couch. He's doing a line. He is possessed by the smile demon at the beginning of the movie. As you can see, the artwork behind him over his shoulder, of course, is this monstrous demonic face, right? Want to go to the next one? What he also uses, it's not, if you saw this shot I'm highlighting here in motion, you would really understand. She's coming around a corner, and as she comes around a corner, all it is a couple of coats hanging up on an easel. But of course, what it creates is the shape of a figure. And as the camera comes around a corner, even though the shot doesn't stop to pay homage to the fact that it's a bit of a jump scare, it gets you just because it looks like there's a person standing there. It draws your attention away from her and distracts you from what's about to happen, which is the jump scare. It's just that setup and payoff that the best horror directors do so well. Let's go to the next image. Right here, I thought this was very interesting. He does this close-up as the characters of Sky Riley's brushing her hair, and you notice, of course, you see this little demonic tattoo, and what is it doing? It's whispering in her ear. And again, it is a demon that is behind her, that is sort of guiding her from behind, like the way a demon in depictions in demonology, there's that idea of the angel on one shoulder and the demon on the other, and that demons are sort of like they have their hands on your shoulders guiding you into evil. So there's a lot of that in this movie that I found very interesting. Want to go to the next one? So if you look at Sky Riley's bedroom set, it is a work of horror art. The production design is so loaded with subliminally creepy imagery. This is from a moment where she's sleeping and she's laying in her bed. All of a sudden, she's startled awake by a sound. Now, the imagery behind her on the wall, the artwork on the character's wall, is all these like flowers and roses. And when you see it in a wider shot, you can see. And I almost think that in some of the close-ups, the production designers probably had different backgrounds that aren't in the wide shot art. Because if you clearly see what, to me, behind her in the shot looks like a demonic face. Do you see it? Do you see the eye?
Yeah, I see
In the
what you're
mouth,
saying.
the smiling mouth. And of course, where is that demon? It's right behind her. Like the smile demon is always right behind her, guiding her into all these hallucinations that slowly are driving her mad. Because the more fear the demon can stoke in the character, the more the demon can eat. That's the demon's whole MO. That's what and I just think, I could be wrong, it's my thought, I just think that's a demonic face. And these demonic faces, if you watch Smile 1 and 2, look in the background of many of the shots and you'll see these subliminal faces. You want to go to the next one? Now, okay, this is one of my favorite in the whole movie, Smile 2. The character that Naomi Scott plays, in a couple of scenes, she's wearing this sweater, like loose hanging sweater that has like bleach stains on it. Well, if you look, doesn't it appear to be the smile demon's hand actually laying on her shoulder? Do you see it? Do you see how the thumb is there and the fingers are going over the shoulder? And in this exact moment in the movie, she's being guided towards this traumatic and frightening hallucination where she sees that stalker fan and she notices all his clothes, and then there's like skid marks on his underwear in the hallway, and then she sees him at the other end of the dark hallway. Yeah. The reason why I believe that Parker Finn actually put that as a subliminal image in the fabric itself is because, to me, it is the demon literally pushing her towards the delusion that is poisoning her mind, these delusions. And if you were to look in the movie, I don't think I got a picture of it to show, but if you look at the front of that shirt, it's the 4 fingers that go down the front as though the hand is like the hand is like this.
Yeah.
Pushing her forward without her knowing it. Maybe you guys disagree. It's just something I saw. This is one of my favorite. The costume design in this movie was also very interesting, revelatory, and full of very strange imagery. Well, this now sort of iconic outfit she wears in the movie, does that not look like the devil? Does that not look like a demonic face with horns? Because by this point, near the crescendo or the climax of the film, she's almost fully taken over by the demon. The smile demon himself, as you see in these movies, is this bloody red demon. And so the costuming is pushing her closer and closer, in my opinion, to emulating the look of the demon himself. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, and I have to have you explain some things after you finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, one of my biggest problems with the film is that I walked away, like, suddenly at the end they kind of throw you this hook that, I mean, I don't really know what the hell's going on. I thought I did, and I hate when I don't seem to get something like this.
But I don't understand what
because
didn't.
what when I mean, I don't know. I don't want to give it away. Or give
Guys,
away
if
too
you
many
haven't seen
spoilers or-
Smile 2, this is about to be a bit of a spoilery discussion about the end.
But by the time you get to the end and you start to realize that so much of her world has been hallucinated, and then she's literally confronted with the demon that looks like her, has taken the form
When
of her.
she's on the stage at the end.
No, even in the
Okay,
room.
yeah, even in the room.
in
right,
that room.
Right. When it's her with the
And then-
long
and-
from the car accident.
And then at the stage,
Yep.
and she's suddenly on stage. What? So is I don't get it. It was the demon being her. How does she end up on stage in makeup in front of an audience if we were in that other room?
And of course, her mother is alive again, and all this other stuff. And yes, look, I can't.
Where's reality?
There
and
is no
where's-
way I can sit here and even attempt to try to explain to you a definitive understanding of those or definitive answers to those questions, because I personally think that ambiguity, because this is a second chapter of what I'm sure is going to continue into a series, I think that ambiguity is open-ended for a reason, and I think it extends beyond even what's confusing to you, because I would say if the smile demon just caused her to traumatically kill herself in front of an audience of thousands of
Yeah,
people,
obviously that's
would
the
all
ultimate
those
goal.
people now be
Well,
possessed?
that's
or
what
can
you're
the
assuming is the whole point of this,
or
right?
can the smile demon only possess one person at a
Well,
time?
we won't
or
know
can the
part
smile
3.
demon possess all of those people?
It just felt like it was a one too many.
Like the character of Morris. Morris is the character who comes to her in the bar and says, "My brother was one of the victims. He's 8 victims back, and I know how to destroy the smile demon." But at the climax of that character's importance to the film, he literally just disappears
so was
from the
he
movie.
even real? Was that was all a
Well, you
trick
could
by
say
the demon to get her?
either he's an illusion or he was somehow a victim of the smile demon. But I think if he was a victim of the smile demon, it would have been depicted.
So, like, his whole explanation. My other problem was I felt like the Smile one has that feel of a movie where you kind of want to know more about why and how this all works, but then they go and actually explain it to you in, like, the second one a little bit, and it felt a little too much explanation.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, I feel
and
you
and
on
I
that.
felt that they did just one too many of the old, like, she keeps realizing or waking up and then realizing whatever scene we just went through wasn't real. It was in her head, or it was an imagination, or she just that old, like, suddenly waking up realizing. And they kind of did that trick a little too many times.
As I'm sitting here thinking about it, it just occurs to me that I would speculate in my mind that I think, if I had to guess, as a filmmaker and as an artist, Parker Finn is probably much more interested in the exploration of trauma and its effects on not just the people who have the trauma, but the people who are connected to the people who care for someone who's been poisoned by trauma and violence in the past. I think he's more interested in the examination of trauma than in the building of a horror character or demon that is like a franchisable
no, of course, yeah.
fixture.
But that demon was horrifying.
The demon,
wonderfully horrifying.
I love how he's depicted in the end of the first Smile and the end of this. He's almost like so cartoonish looking.
No, it's like Evil Dead, stop motion-y that You know what I
It
mean?
just
Like
looks,
that
it looks almost
over the top.
goofy,
Yeah.
but in a very pleasing way.
Yeah, those eyes are so.
The design of the smile demon in his, what you, I guess we can consider his raw form, I just think is disturbingly odd in that he looks like a practical effect,
Right.
a practical model or a practical puppet.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it makes him more disturbing to me in a way. I just want to quickly say hello to somebody new, Sukma Wati, and I really hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand what you're commenting, but I do want to say hello and thank you for joining
PNW
us.
back to you.
Right back to you.
Anyway, I thought it was a good
Well,
horror
Sandy
film.
Peterson just brought up a great point. Sandy Peterson just asked, so was Morris trying to kill Sky Riley, that character? Well, what if Morris was actually just the smile demon trying to convince her to believe that this was going to stop?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what. Well, I mean, I think that's what
Yeah.
he's trying to make you question by having that guy just disappear. You know.
I just think ultimately Parker Finn has created a new franchise that is has a beautiful ability, like I said, to ride the line between real consumerist, populist horror that still has this rewatchability through depth of design, of thematic material. It's like it balanced the best of both worlds, the Smile movie.
It makes you think, if nothing else. It definitely.
It really makes
walk
you wonder
away
where it's going to go
yeah,
from here.
Yeah, definitely.
Doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yep.
So yeah.
Move on.
And one last, we got two quick ones. We'll do these real quick and then we'll move on.
Because we've talked a lot about this, but of course,
how could you not have Terrifier 3 on this list? I really wanted to put Terrifier 3 as my favorite film of 2024, and I have to be really, really honest with you. In many ways, this number 2 and number 1, they're even. To say Terrifier 3 is not my favorite film of 2024 is just, that doesn't make sense. It is. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite movie theater experiences of many years was Joe and I saw it together in an afternoon where we basically had the theater to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the sheer joy and the sheer happiness and comfort, as strange as that sounds, that I was feeling enjoying Terrifier 3 in a movie theater, enjoying being tickled by the grotesquerie I was watching, the violence, the sadism, the humor, the brilliant humor and satirical sort of kind of veins of humor that go through Terrifier 3. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The subtextual kind of slap at commerce and at Christmas and at American Christmas, and even more specifically, like suburban American Christmas, mm-hmm. and the idea of destroying this comforting notion of what a white suburban American Christmas should be, and what we've always imagined it is. Mm-hmm. And yes, I do think that throwing that word white in there is important, because I think what Damien Leone is depicting in Terrifier 3 is the destruction of the classic traditional white escape suburban experience. Yeah. In that Art the Clown has come in to not only destroy and trample the sacred nature of Christmas, but the sacred safety of the suburbs. Mm-hmm. It's something that I think Damien Leone, in my opinion, my subjective opinion, I think Damien Leone is very fascinated by the destruction of or the depiction of the destruction of everything that people of our generation were taught to be comforted by. Yeah. Christmas, suburbs, going to the carnival. He what's the word I'm looking for? He kind of flips all that on its head and destroys it and smashes at it, but lovingly, but truly lovingly and nostalgically.
Yeah, sure.
I think Damien Leone is a far more profound artist than pop culture even now has given him credit for. I think of almost any contemporary horror filmmaker working right now, I am so excited to see what else Damien Leone is going to create in his career, because he is a really brilliant filmmaker and a really...
His integrity that you don't see in filmmakers a lot, and it's going to be really interesting to see after this.
He's really got the test now.
I'm sure he's got the world being offered him, to him, that it's going to be really interesting to
Terrifier
see what he
3
does.
should show both PJ Falcone, the producer of these films, and Damien Leone, that they obviously can make millions doing it their way.
Yeah,
By
exactly.
simply, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean they have to just cater to the Terrifier audience. I think the beauty of Terrifier 3 was that it expanded and brought all these new fans into the fold.
It was that old school, like you know, a bunch of people see the movie and then they're just like, "Oh my god, you got to go see this movie! It's so good." It's like that old word of mouth, how it, you know, it really built from just the people who you weren't expecting to go for it end up going for it because they're being told it's this new fun thing to go do at the theater, you know, that we haven't seen in a while.
You know, something that can really, in my opinion, pollute great art is when art is attempted to be wrangled in a way of making it inclusive to only a certain group. The Terrifier franchise, which now I think you can officially call it, the Terrifier franchise, it could very easily have just been aimed at a very particular niche of gnarly slasher film lovers, you know, 80s and 70s horror film lovers. And it could have been comfortably just marketed to those people and kept it inclusive. What I think is so encouraging about Terrifier 3 is it had aspirations to be seen by a broader audience, and yet it at no point deteriorated its own integrity to do so.
I know you would have thought there would have been a
It didn't
more
sell
selling
anything
out,
of
yeah.
itself out
Yeah.
in order to reach a larger audience. Damien Leone didn't have to compromise himself to bring more people into the circus tent, to enjoy what he's creating and to be entertained by what he's creating. And as a creative person, even though Joe and I are not creating films or creating podcasts and YouTube, I take that to heart as a lesson that you can expand what you're doing without losing your integrity and losing your heart. And if more artists, you know,
If you have a really
emulated
good
that
idea
philosophy,
too, you know,
absolutely.
I mean, an idea that's worth.
And I'm not trying to put
sticking
us
to
on
the
the
guns.
same
No,
level
no.
as Damien Leone.
I wanted
I'm
to
just
show-
saying, we look at him as an inspiration.
This was
look
my
at
Christmas gift to Christian.
This is incredible.
I got to meet Bill Diamond, one of the associate producers and an
Of
art
Terrifier
director
movies,
of
yeah.
Terrifier 3. And this is one of the actual ornaments from the mall scene where
Terrifier 3.
Yeah, where Art is
When he mass kills
meeting
all those
the
children.
kids, yeah, and right in the front. And anyway, it was like signed by him, and it was in the movie. It was
Like
screen use.
that. What
and
what I
was-
said to Joe that I really struck me, and it's the way my mind works.
Yeah.
Joe was saying like this is a great piece of antiquity from the set of an artifact rather from Terrifier 3. But to me, why this is magical is because this came out of Art the Clown's reality. This exists in Art's reality and now also exists in ours. That creates some, in my twisted, weird, childish mind, this strange bridge. Like touching this is like touching an artifact from the reality that Art exists in.
There's only like 20 or so of these. It's
I mean,
in
what a
this-
Christmas gift.
In the scene, when you see the sign that says like "Meet Santa Tay" or something at the base of it, are a bunch of these.
Yeah, you'll
balls,
see.
and
You
that's
can't
what it's
miss
from.
them in the movie.
Bill Diamond brought a bunch of these to Providence to the Rhode Island Comic Con, and if you were lucky enough to go ask him and you knew about it, he would sign one for you and do this.
I mean,
and so,
I appreciate that.
there we go.
Joe
That's
gave
for
that to me,
Christian
and I
right
mean
there.
that is like something
Well,
I will treasure.
When the movie came out, you were so obsessed with like, I want to get everything
Yeah.
merchandise wise. It's going to be the first official stuff, and you were trying to get your hands on everything. And
Well,
I said,
it's
"Wow,
like- it's
this
like-
is screen use. How do I not get it for him?"
It's like imagine, in a lot of you guys watching this probably are these people that collected the original like Michael Myers merchandise when Halloween 4 was coming out, and it's or the original Friday the 13th merchandise during that era. It's like having these artifacts from this now, and the Terrifier is starting and getting growing. So every little item in obscurity that I can collect is something that, and I'm not a type of collector that collects things in order to sell them or this is going to be so monetarily valuable in the future. No, you don't get me if that's what you think. I collect things for the affectionate, comforting value, like that it's not something I'll never let go. That ball could be worth $10 million in the future. It's never going to be let go by me. It's just I like to collect the esoteric value of things, right? You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Joe's a little of both. He has a lot of things he collects
yeah,
for their value, and a lot of things he collects out of the love of the game. Well, one last movie, the number one, tied for number one. I'm only going to say this for a minute because in our last live stream, our Halloween live stream, we talk at length about this film. So you can watch that live stream and really get the full review. But the reason why I wanted this to be the top...
I'm sorry, you're cut off.
Hey, good. I'm glad for that. It's a relief to the people watching.
I don't know. Can I change this live? We'll see what happens.
The real thing to me that blew my mind in this film was the performance of Willa Fitzgerald, who plays the lead character in this film that's called the Electric Lady. Strange Darling, I think similar to that film I talked about a little bit ago, You'll Never Find Me, is definitely a film that is the beauty of its experience is in its discovery. Watching this film and letting its non-linear structure and interesting style sort of work on you. Now, I will say, there's been sort of a lot of people turning on this movie. Letterboxd is a place, an app, a lot of people track the quality of films. And apparently there's been a lot of talk because there's a lot of people beating up on Strange Darling on Letterboxd all of a sudden and trying to pull away some of its clout that it accumulated during 2024. And yes, this movie is sort of a pastiche of a lot of its filmmaker J.T. Molnar's influences, but it is held together at its center by a very unique experience of a story and these characters that keep kind of metamorphizing as you're watching the movie.
The story unfolds is truly
unfolding.
It's like a character in itself to watch to see how it's going to play out because it keeps kind of keeps taking you off your center. Every time it gives you a little twist and you're like, oh, okay, that's what's going on.
Well,
then you get something else and you're like, oh, it's that.
What J.T. Molnar does so beautifully is he presents you with what immediately feel like recognizable tropes from the genre of film this is. And yet he repeatedly does something similar to like what Tarantino does, is he lets you take a minute to get comfortable with the trope he's presenting, and then he completely...
Right when you think you
manipulates
you know exactly what the movie is going to be.
And it doesn't mean he necessarily turns it on its head. He might just tweak it or manipulate it a little and give it a dynamic new kind of feeling, and suddenly the trope feels fresh again. But for me, it really was the discovery of this character that Willa Fitzgerald plays, the Electric Lady, easily my favorite character of all fiction of 2024. A character that I would give anything to meet in real life. If I could meet this woman, I would give both of my arms for that opportunity. As dangerous as this woman is, that's like my dream now.
Don't worry, she'll take them
I want to find a woman that's like the Electric Lady to share my life with. And if you've watched Strange Darling, you're probably thinking, wow, okay, yeah, all right. But I just think it's a beautifully written, directed, acted, and Giovanni Ribisi, the actor, primarily known as a pretty well-known actor, he launched his career as a cinematographer with this film, and he shot the film in 35 millimeter, and it looks 35. It's
There's
beautiful.
a beautiful grain and film look to it that...
It's got kind of a 70s kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched Strange Darling,
do it.
Watch it.
Yeah.
I will guarantee you will at least be captivated by it. So what are we doing next here? Thank you guys. I appreciate you for letting us share these movies with you.
A little less than an hour before midnight over here, where we're at anyway.
That's right.
So part of tonight, we want to take a few minutes at some point. We're going to talk about the Superman trailer and
just
how
a lot
it
of
relates
what's
to the
going
original
on with
Superman,
that now.
and in fact, we'll talk about that in Video Vault. So we're going to take a sort of a quick break by playing you guys
in case you haven't seen
Superman trailer, so that you'll know what we're talking about a little bit. It's only 2 minutes long.
Even though, it became the most watched trailer.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone's probably seen it.
In its first 24 hours of release, this trailer was the most watched trailer in history. And there is a lot riding on this film because it is essentially the starting point of the new DC Studios universe of movies. Now that the kind of Zack Snyder verse films have sort of ebbed and have kind of been moved into a past perspective, now you have James Gunn and Peter Safran essentially running DC Studios and creating kind of an MCU situation where they're, revitalizing these characters cinematically and creating all new versions. And for this film, of course, the actor David Cornsweet, who a lot of you may have seen in the Ty West film Pearl. That was the first place I ever saw him. I mean, they picked a guy who definitely looks like Superman. And I have mixed feelings about the trailer. So why don't we take a look at it, and then we'll be back.
Yep, we'll be going for this, and then we'll come back.
We'll be gearing up for the stroke of midnight, at least here on the East Coast of the United States. It's like 10 past 11 p.m. now.
Yeah.
And so let's check out the trailer, and I'm going to do a costume change, and we'll be right back.
Here we go.
Crypto. Home. Take me home.
Superman.
We are back.
And we are back. The James Gunn 2025 Superman trailer. Originally, it was going to be titled, I guess, Superman Legacy. And there was a change just to, I think it was a brilliant idea, just a great idea to just drop the word legacy and just let it be Superman. And the interesting thing is, the 1970, was it 78? Film was actually called Superman the Movie, so it did have theoretically a different title than this.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts as a lifelong Superman fan?
But I want to clarify, because I know I'm always going on and on. My love is for Superman in film and TV more than comics. I'm not a huge comic guy. When I was younger, I definitely read them. And I still keep up with the storylines through just, online stuff. I read a couple of the important ones. I like to be, informed in what's going on with all the stuff.
Yep.
But my passion is for that 78 Superman movie. To me,
Talk about nostalgic. Tying that back.
78 Superman movie is the most important superhero movie ever and will ever be made.
Now, do you think so? You're suggesting, in your subjective opinion, it is to this day, and you're saying will ever be made?
It will, depending how history unfolds. I don't think the impact it had, the way you could take a comic book character and bring it to a serious level, sort of, even though it had a lot of fun and everything to it, it was taken seriously. And it just, there isn't going to be everything that stems, or any other superhero, anything that comes out, there's some root back to the seed that was planted in Superman 78. Something about what every other superhero movie made, you can find a trace of, or even if it's just subliminally, it's in every filmmaker's head. It's you know what I mean? You had to have seen it if you're going to make a superhero movie in your life, if you're a director.
One thing I read about this iteration is, instead of doing the Superman origin story from the beginning again, this film apparently just drops you in right as Superman's fixture in Metropolis, it's amongst other heroes, some of which that are more accepted than him.
He's concentrating more just like world building, not necessarily origin story. We're just sort of
because we all know Superman's origin.
Yeah,
it's like redundantly redoing Peter Parker's origin story, like. When Mark Webb did The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield, he probably didn't need to do the whole origin and put it. That's why I think he put that different spin on it.
I think it's fun. It's just I think
this film looks a little overstuffed to me. I will say that.
All right, so here's the deal. All right, so this film, the good about it, or what I'm seeing. First of all, what we're seeing is a teaser. It's not even like the full trailer. And I will admit, I'm a person who was constantly suckered by good trailers, making you think that this film is going to be good. And I hate saying it, but all my gut is telling me is that the trailers are better than the movie is going to be.
Well, there is a website, a sort of a like movie business prognosticator and journalist named Jordan Ruimi, and his website's called World of Real. And I quote from that website a lot on the Instagram page. He has reported recently that some of the test screenings of this film have been terrible.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, that doesn't really mean, it's just anecdotal.
I have to wonder that although there are a lot of, I won't say Easter eggs because they're just characters in the film, but there's a lot of the not recognizable sort of mainstream characters that if he's not going to take the time to do any sort of, hey, how did all these people link up and all that, and you just sort of throw them all in the world together,
well, you just said about how
the average person's going to get lost.
That this is a teaser, specifically, not a trailer.
Right.
And yet, don't you feel like he crammed a lot in that teaser?
Well, and okay, so that's kind of like
too much.
There's almost a fun aspect to that he every single second of that teaser, there's something there specifically. It's not just moments. There's something that if he knew that when people and all the fans paused it, that if they were smart enough or a big enough fan, that they would be, oh, that's from this comic, and this was a tie to this, and this is that. But almost to the point where I'm like, did he worry too much about that stuff? When every single shot can be broken down that way from the teaser.
There's two things. Number one, I think that this film looks. You were mentioning how you're not really following much of the comic side of DC nowadays. To me, this, from the footage you see in this teaser, the kind of the vibe of it looks, I said this to you before, it looks very much like a 2020s comic book. Like a Marvel or a DC comic book. The type of color, the type of splashy imagery, the splashy character designs, the splashy, suit designs, everything broad and colorful. A lot of them, if you guys have been following Marvel or DC in the last couple of years, or just kind of glancing at and just kind of flipping through some of the issues that are out there, it seems like they're going for more of a colorful, broad kind of milieu of storytelling. And I think this film is like the way the Zack Snyder films had a darkness to them.
Yeah.
Like the Henry Cavill Superman has got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, this Superman definitely seems to be a little more in the same vein of a Christopher Reeve Superman. But the suit isn't doing it for me. It's better than the previous one.
I like the cape and I like the logo.
I just don't like all the lines that almost imply shoulder pads and things there.
And it was David Cornsweet David's Cornsweet was the one who insisted that he have the trunks.
Yeah, and that's great. Like, you can't be afraid, like, you know, if that's what the character wore. It's just, you know, I mean, that's Superman, and I understand it, you know, but we've kind of gotten past that. That's what I mean. We did it with Christopher Reeve movie. It's not a thing, right? It's not like everyone walked away from those movies going, God, that was so good, great. It was just weird seeing him in red underwear.
The other weird thing for me is James Gunn as the director of this film. James Gunn, every one of his films has had almost an auteurist style to it that is specific to James Gunn.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with kind of a punchy, almost sort of dark sense of humor, or a little bit of a cynicism that he kind of, kind of patterns onto his stories. I would not have thought of James Gunn, of all comic book characters, to make a Superman film, which I think works best when you embrace the sentimentality of Superman.
I mean,
I don't see James Gunn as a Yes, Guardians of the Galaxy, especially the third one, has a sentimental core. But Superman is a particular kind of sentimentality.
Yeah.
It's an authentic. He is authentically good.
I think he's doing another Superman movie too quickly after we've already had a bunch of Superman movies.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
If he wanted his...
And the Snyderverse has very passionate fans.
If he wanted his version, the Gunn version, to stick out a little more or feel a little more of his own, I think he should have given it a little time. I don't think we need another Superman movie right now.
Personally, if James Gunn is going to be... If him and his partner, Peter Safran, are going to be the overseers of the entire DC Studios film output, then James Gunn, in my opinion, should have stepped back from directing any of the films and just been like the Kevin Feige of DC, whose job is to creatively oversee all the separate projects.
Don't get me wrong. I want a great Superman movie. I hope it's a great Superman movie.
It has Crypto. HB3 Electric said when Crypto showed up in the trailer, it brought a tear to my eye.
Me too. It definitely it's hitting some great chords in there during the teaser. The Crypto, the idea that they might have him in there and he's taken sort of seriously in this world.
But Crypto never spoke in the comics. Did he? Does he talk?
So he had the thought bubbles.
Oh, okay.
So in the comics, Crypto did have intelligence. He came up with plans. I don't know if they really specifically said how he conveyed those ideas, like, to the other characters, but you would see the thought bubbles behind what Crypto's thinking was in the comics. You know,
anytime if you give a character in a story a lovable dog, it makes that character more lovable if their relationship works.
Yeah, of course.
And a good example of that I always like to call attention to with this type of a trope, I think the best modern example is if you guys watch The Walking Dead. Norman Reedus' character, Daryl Dixon, and his dog. That's just called Dog on the show. Yeah. That is a perfect example of what I'm trying to say, where the relationship between the character and the expression of love to the dog and the connection and partnership and kind of seeing eye to eye him and the dog and not seeing the dog as a lesser, it just enriches the Daryl Dixon character and brings life to the Daryl Dixon character. That I can see that working very well, and it's interesting that it's never been in any of the Superman movies. Crypto,
not the
movies.
Never
been depicted.
No, I think they've had him in some shows and cartoons, and he's always been a little comfy. Which
he looks very cartoonish to me too. Well, he almost doesn't look like a real dog.
No, it's a lot of it's CG.
But I understand that it's a CG character. Yeah. But I'm talking about the design of Crypto in the trailer and in this movie. Yeah. He's done to have these bright kind of
he's a
cartoony
Kryptonian
eyes.
dog.
Right. So
I
that
mean,
might not be a normal dog.
the actual story of how Crypto ends up on Earth and why he's there and everything is actually very cool. It's
Wasn't it connected to Superman's cousin, Kara?
no, it was a test. His father sends Crypto out as a test first to see if the ship
Oh my God,
is
I've
going to
heard
make
about
it
this.
to Earth.
And it was an emulation of when the Russians sent that sad
Yeah,
poor dog out into
but-
space that was never coming home.
But the idea was it goes off course at some point.
Yep.
And then he's forced to send Superman to Earth.
Okay.
And at some point though, the Crypto ship figures out how to get to Earth. And by the time, he comes there and Superman is like a teenager, or something with the whole space time thing. Anyway, it's a cool little story. But
I love it.
There's some good things. What I'm wondering is this use of the John Williams music.
I have to say, it's one of my nitpicks. I think it works like gangbusters in the trailer.
Yeah.
But I was sort of disappointed that yet another modern iteration of Superman is going to lean back in on that classic, iconic John Williams
Well,
theme.
okay,
As
so-
opposed to just creating a new musical voice for the character that can say that this is a new version, a new idea that can take this and become its own iconic thing.
But-
is it supposed to suggest that this is connected to the Christopher Reeve Superman?
Exactly. I think
It's confusing.
I have a feeling it's just going to be in the trailers and teasers, and he's doing that on purpose to give you that wonder. Wow, is this connected? And if he does use it in the movie, I think he's probably giving into the idea that this is what I mean. The original movie is the most important. You cannot think of Superman without thinking of that theme. They are forever.
I know, but
forever connected.
I
And
just
so you
wonder
can embrace
about
that
the
as a filmmaker and
I
maybe
know.
try to find a
I just
a new
wonder
way to
about
use
the
it.
fidelity of it. If you're using it as a filmmaker because there is the expectation or the genetic linkage, like you're talking about, between the character and that music, well, it almost feels like you're being forced to use it because it's the expected thing. And that, to me, sometimes, like I said earlier, can pollute an idea.
Sure.
Now,
But
that doesn't mean it won't
I-
work.
I do think he's using it probably mostly in the marketing because it's perfect for marketing. You do get that feeling when you hear it a little bit. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
no, you clearly get that
and
feeling.
I'm sure if they probably cut the trailer with and without it, and then when you have it, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you're
so
right.
it'll be, and also the words, the way he did the sort
Yep.
of the clear block over the space, that's just like the credits
Yeah.
from the Richard Donner movies.
Which, again, just feels a little bit
I know.
too
well,
emulative.
So is it that, or is it also the way that you can look at the suit and say, well, he pulled from the Ross this and that, like he's pulling from all these previous.
Or there's like little bits
people
of
who
like
have worked on
All-Star
Superman.
Grant Morrison
Yeah,
era.
everything. There's little bits of it everywhere. That's what I mean. It can work fabulously, or it's just gonna be like another whatever superhero movie. I gotta admit, the Lex Luthor guy looks
Nicholas Holt
so scrawny.
doesn't work. It's not.
He
I
just
don't.
doesn't look threatening.
But maybe it'll be a surprising
well,
performance.
If you get an arc, if you get a few.
Remember when they
movies,
cast
he
Heath
could-
Ledger?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always go back to this.
yeah.
When they originally, in 2007, when they originally cast Heath Ledger, of all people, to play the Joker, and at that time, the iconic interpretation of the Joker that had come before this was Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
So trying to imagine, you're picturing that's the only Joker cinematically we had ever had at that point. So Heath Ledger seemed, what, Heath Ledger? But then you see it becomes the most iconic Joker of all time. Heath Ledger, you're going to argue he's not the most iconic cinematic Joker?
I would go with Nicholson.
Oh my, I can't believe that. You can't ever.
So listen,
Yeah.
I was gonna say earlier, and I stopped myself from going down that road when I was saying Superman is the most important movie. What my true belief is that it's a twofer. The Donner 78 Superman and the 89
Batman.
Batman are like
Those are the two sides of the coin.
Those are the two most
dark and the light.
important superhero movies that will ever be made, in my opinion.
I'm gonna let that concept really kind of like marinate in my mind, and on our next live stream, I'll come up with a retort.
I'm not taking away from what Heath Ledger did.
I know what you're saying. Can I just
It's
take a quick minute?
iconic.
If you guys notice, we did a costume change
Thank
here.
you, HB Electric.
I just want to say, and by the way, I want to notice, H83 Electric was very interesting to point out that cosmonaut dog that
Yeah.
was so sadly sent into space, the first true astronaut. But when the Russians launched this, or the Soviets at that time launched this dog into space, there was never any way of getting the dog back home. They knew the dog would die
Well, that's
floating in
pretty
space.
much what they did to crypto, too.
But there is a picture of, and the dog's name was Laika, Laika, according to H. And I know that's a true fact, and I'm just glad that he brought it up. There's an image you can Google if you really are brave of that little dog in his capsule, and he looks so proud and happy, and knowing that he was never coming home and he was going to die of starvation in the vacuum of space alone is. I find it actually that story of that dog, and I'll tell you the reason why I didn't
crash landed on
the reason why I didn't remind me Red Sun. The reason why I didn't know that dog's name was Laika is because I swear there's been a part of my mind that's never really wanted to look too much into that lore because it's so heartbreaking.
Hey, by the way, really quick, let's talk about our costume change. Your
Yeah,
mom,
yeah.
This is
was
great.
the
The
second
boys
hoodie.
of summer.
My mom got this for me, an original hoodie. The Boys of Fall, actually.
Oh, Boys of Fall. Sorry, I was
And
going
it,
to say.
and
yeah,
it represents
yeah,
the 3 seasons so far of Haddonfield Radio in order.
Yeah.
You have season 1, season 2, and now the new
Oh, look at
season
that.
3.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
on this arm it says Boys of Fall, and on this arm it says Halloween. Guys, everybody alive thinks that they were born with the world's greatest mother. And I know it's not a friendly thing to do on a holiday evening, on a festive New Year's Eve, but I've got to tell you something. I'm going to break it to you. You're all adults, so don't start weeping on me. We're about to celebrate the new year, so let's keep it festive. But I will have to break it to you. Unfortunately, the truth is I was born with the world's greatest mother, and there's only one, and her name's Dolores.
Oh, Mrs. White. She has been our biggest fan.
I think I
since
might
we
have
were
just doxed
kids.
my own mother there.
Oh, weird.
Anyway, I want to say really quick, I love
I
my
got-
mother. Thank you. She's listened to every episode. I don't know why. She doesn't like horror movies, but she's listened to every episode, including the live streams, and I love you.
My lovely wife got me.
Jen Fliss.
Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, I didn't even notice
Look at
that.
They love
Oh,
each other.
that's so
You do it.
cute.
Now you do it. Now you do it to me. We do it. Can we do
I
a
can't
heart?
really do that because
I
I'm not
can't-
part of the TikTok
It doesn't
generation.
look right. I think we're doing it. We have
Oh, I
to,
have to
there we
like
go.
that.
There we go. We're doing hearts.
Oh
Just
yeah,
like-
kind of.
just like
It's
Michael
like
J.
more
said.
like an oblong
like a butthole.
rectangle, but
Anyway.
yeah, a butthole possibly.
Anyway.
I.
Yes,
Oh, look
let's-
at Mike Hatfield.
let's
said,
raise
let's
a
raise a
glass
glass.
to
I'm actually going to raise a glass
Mrs.
out of
White.
my
Look at that.
actual rum and coke, which I
Yeah.
haven't even sipped yet.
I'm on
'cause
number 2.
I don't know if you guys knew this about me, but I actually don't drink.
Yeah,
But I'll have a sip. It's New Year's, and I just had to break it to you that your mother's number 2 or number 3 or number 4, but not number 1. Let's do it.
Mrs. White's been making us merch since our first band.
Oh, 30 years she's been in this.
Okay, so
Indians.
we got a half hour left. I think we might try.
Let's do a few calls.
to try to do the call
But
thing
before we
again.
do, let's show we've got a giveaway.
All right.
A special one-of-a-kind, literally a one-of-a-kind giveaway. We have 6 of these to give away, the first 6 callers.
If you call in and we talk
Once
to you
these
on air,
are gone, these are gone forever, and there's only 6 of them.
so we have
We forgot to sign them, but that's all
no,
right.
we're going to sign them before they go out. But we have these season 3 Friday the 13th artwork from Mike Hatfield. He has signed it. We are going to sign them
It's
before
the
they get mailed out.
it's the actual official thumbnail art for episode 23 of Haddonfield Radio, our Friday the 13th, 1980 episode.
This is like the custom though, like Haddonfield radio version. Like
yeah,
where
he even did his own little
he
like
got some custom text.
own
up
little,
there.
like,
These are,
tagline.
it's a one-off. So the first 6 people, we're going to mail you those, plus the stickers that we have from the show. And if we talk to you on the air, hopefully this works.
Plus, I will promise you this right here and now. I'm going to personally kiss every single envelope.
All right. So
Happy New Year.
we're going to bring up that information
French style.
like we did last time.
So let's just explain it in case you're just tuning in now live, which is probably the same people from the last live stream. But you can dial any of these numbers. Just follow the simple prompts that are on the screen, and you can talk. Now remember, it's just your voice. You don't have to even. You're not going to be seen. No one's going to see you. It's like the old days of talk radio. Joe and I did a radio show for many years, a talk radio show, so we wanted to bring elements of that, which was always super fun. And super, you never knew what it was truly live because you never knew what people are going to say. And I'm going to say this: if you'd like to troll us, I would say that's totally fine. Just make it funny and no hate speech. That's it.
Yeah.
Let's keep it fun.
I don't know. Tell us what you're doing this evening.
And that
for
means
New
you,
Year's.
spooky Halloween gal. No hate speech.
But we'll
You're going
see
to
if
hear
this
some hate
works.
speech if you don't call tonight. I want to hear your voice. Who's going to be the first person not only to call in live, but who's going to get the giveaway?
And if you talk to us, you just have to email us your information to mail you the
Yeah,
stuff.
we'll figure that all out.
MyersRadio@yahoo.com. It's on our YouTube page, and also there's links there if people do also want to buy any T-shirts.
Yeah,
and
we have a
some
lot of different
posters, and
merchandise if you want to get
it's
some.
just all up on my eBay page. Nothing fancy to buy them, but
I thought
and
while
if that doesn't work for you, email us. We'll figure out a way to do it.
yeah, but we do have some really fun stuff, and it's really cheap. So if you want
Mm-hmm.
to get it, and I don't mean cheap quality, it's just cheap to buy it.
Yeah.
So anyway, and if we sell out all of our season 1 shirts, our original shirt with artwork by the great artist Mark Putenis of Michael Myers, no, it's Ghost Michael Myers with the headphones on, that T-shirt. Then if we sell those out, we're going to make a season 3 Friday the 13th Haddonfield Radio limited edition T-shirt for the end of season 3. So that only happened if these season 1 shirts get out of Joe's basement. And while we're waiting for calls, I thought I would talk about a few of the movies from coming up in 2025 in the horror genre.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
going through a list I found on Reddit by a Redditor named Jonah_Cade,
Okay.
obviously a big horror geek. And he was nice enough to put together a giant, not only a 2024 watch list, but a 2025 movies that are being made and are going to be released. So let's go through some of these.
wait,
We've got a
I
call.
think we have
Let's
somebody.
take a call.
We're going to try to
Let's see if this works.
ask to unmute.
Please unmute for
I
us.
think that's them. I think they're. Oh, there we go. They've unmuted.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Hello, you're live on the air on Haddonfield Radio. Who's this?
This is HV3 Electric.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And do you want to give us a first name?
Yeah, my name's Herb.
Herb. I would never have guessed your name is Herb. That would not have. I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you right now that was not going to be my guess. You sound like
Yeah,
you
so
sound like a Mark.
I was almost an Eric, so maybe.
Oh well, I'm close. Well, what do you want to talk about? Tell us something about yourself. What do you want to talk about?
Nothing in particular. I just want to say I really loved your guys' YouTube channel. The relationship you guys have with each other reminds me a lot of the relationship I have with my best friend, who
Oh, I
still
love
lives
that.
up in Rhode Island.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
and
where we're at.
one of the biggest things that we had in common was our love of the Halloween franchise. And so when you guys came out with the Haddonfield Radio YouTube channel, I could easily see me and him as you guys just hanging, talking about the movies and everything like that. And it's just always been endearing to me
I love
to
that.
listen to the guys' show.
Oh wow, thank you. It's exactly
that's
what
awesome.
we've tried to make this feel like you're just hanging out with your buddies. And I think that fact that we have known each other for so long and from watching movies together and everything, it helps this.
We've gotten really good at pretending to like each other on camera.
we don't have to try to have like a thing with each other. It just is,
Yeah.
from all the years.
Oh,
you know?
is it ever?
Oh boy.
No, it's so good to actually hear your voice. We've been reading your comments and talking and knowing you that way. So to actually like be human to human as best as possible here. If you don't mind me asking, what general area are you calling from?
Actually, I was born in Massachusetts and I grew up in Rhode Island, but I now live in North Carolina,
Oh,
right outside of
very
Greensboro.
beautiful state.
Wow, about as
cour-
different from New England as you can get.
You know that Joe and I we're recording this right now in Rhode Island. We're right outside of Providence, so that's something.
Yeah, I grew up in Pawtucket, so not too far
Oh, the
away.
bucket, nice.
Very cool. Oh, it's so cool to hear voices with people that we've been talking to for so long.
Now, what's your favorite Friday the 13th film?
Oh yeah.
It's going to be a toss-up between 4 and 6, but I'd probably go with the final chapter overall.
It's so funny. I think it was before,
Yeah,
right before we started
yeah.
recording, I happened to make that offhand comment. I said, my opinion, I think the overall favorite amongst, if you polled fans, is probably Final Chapter.
Yeah, it's the one that it walked the best line between like humor, horror, like great kills, good storyline, good characters. It hit all the marks
And
of the films.
I want to say this unironically. I think it's actually Corey Feldman's greatest performance. I think it's his best acting. And some people
He's
think some
he's
people laugh at
excellent
me
in
with
it.
that, but I think he's great in that movie.
Hmm.
I
I agree.
I love listening to Corey in the what's the Friday the 13th documentary, the
Crystal Lake Memories.
Crystal Lake Memories. I love hearing him talk about how much all the ideas he had to be able to continue his character on, and and do other things.
Well, that's very
with it.
Corey Feldman.
No, I
though.
know, but I mean, imagine if he did
Mhm.
he had become the next Jason. It would have
Yeah.
been great.
Well, Herb, I just
Mhm.
want to say thank you so much for calling in and for joining us here on New Year's Eve. I know everybody's got so many things they could be doing and celebrating, and it really does literally and sincerely mean the world to us that not only did you hang out with us tonight, but you called in.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe will get your
Absolutely.
information
Yeah.
and we'll send you this package.
Email us at myersradio@yahoo.com, your mailing info, and I believe the link's right on our YouTube
Just
page. So
Myers Radio, one word.
Just send us an email, and we'll send you out some stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much, Herb. It was really, really nice to finally get a chance to speak with you.
All right, that's great. Thank you guys. Happy New Year. I hope you guys had a great holiday. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to say I love you to my wife who's sitting here with me on the couch.
What's,
you gotta
what's
do
your
it.
wife's
Looking-
name? What's your wife's
Yeah,
name?
give a shout out.
What is
Her
it?
name's Karen.
Oh my
Karen.
God, Karen.
Herb and Karen sitting in a tree.
K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
All right.
Oh my God!
Happy
Will
New
you,
Year, guys.
will
Have
you
fun.
please give her a kiss on the lips from Joe and I and say Happy New Year at a little before 12, so we give her the first kiss? Will you do that? Because I haven't kissed a girl in a while.
We had a good call, and you had to go make it weird, huh?
Any
All
chance
right,
I can
so
get?
do you want one kiss from each of you, or each of you get a kiss?
Oh.
Just to make it better for you, I'm going to say one kiss from each of us, so you get to kiss your beautiful wife 3 times. All right,
Whoa,
fair enough.
I'm a lucky man.
Yeah.
I'm a lucky man.
No, please let her know that we love her, we love you, and we really sincerely appreciate you guys, and we wish you have the happiest of New Year's.
Yeah, you too. All the best, guys.
We love
Have
you.
a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right.
Now, do we have another call?
No.
Guys, if you want to call in, you can feel free. Just follow the prompts on the screen. Let's talk about one of the movies just popped up on this list coming out in 2025. One of a filmmaker I really like, Lee Wannell's version of The Wolfman.
I'm definitely curious about it because I feel like I saw a teaser and I was like,
Yep.
And then also I saw a longer trailer and I was like, oh, it's
To me,
it's almost more like an infection,
That's right.
right? Than a old school monster just
And it
transformation.
feels like they're hiding something from the audience, or hiding like a direction they're going in with this. Like they're trying to keep things a little ambiguous. But from what I've seen, exactly what you said, that's exactly what I noticed too. And it shows some new kind of sort of avenues of being a werewolf that haven't really been depicted on screen. Like when he's sort of transforming and his wife is speaking to him, he can't understand her voice like
Yeah.
an animal wouldn't be able to understand a human.
Yep.
It's just, I think Lee Wannell, if you don't know, he was the guy, one of the 2 guys. Him and James Wan created the Saw franchise. And then he went on to do The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss, and also did, what was that other one that he did? Upgrade, which is an awesome movie. Awesome, with Logan Marshall Green. Really, really fun movie. But both The Invisible Man and this upcoming Wolfman are Universal Pictures releases. So obviously, in one way or another, they're connected to this incredible Universal monster legacy.
Universal's doing a big push on all their classic monsters. Isn't Guillermo del Toro's doing
Frankenstein,
Frankenstein,
right.
for Netflix, which is
But I'm talking about the ones specifically made through the studio of
Yeah.
Universal, like these two.
and Mike Lesko was asking me. I kept meaning to get back to him. One of our listeners.
We love you, Mike Lesko.
He was asking about the Mummy movies and with the new stuff coming out versus did I have any allegiance to the old stuff?
Like you're talking about the Tom Cruise version, the Mummy with
I guess,
Russell
or
Crowe and
even
Tom
the
Cruise? Brendan Fraser
Brendan
ones?
Fraser. You know,
Those
I
were
just-
to me more emulative of like the Indiana Jones movies than horror movies.
Yeah, exactly. I just haven't. I've never had a real affinity for mummy movies.
Yeah, it's not my favorite
You know
of
what I
even the
mean?
Universal monsters.
I
Although
mean,
the original,
the originals, I can always appreciate.
you know what,
as
the
a film
original
person, you know,
Universal 1930s or 1940s. I'm sorry, I don't recall the actual date of it.
Yeah.
Original Mummy
Yeah.
was actually one of the best screenplays of is well thought of as one of the best screenplays of that era of the Universal monsters. Had the most depth to it, the most kind of occult angles and mythology angles. And I'd like to actually go back and watch the original 1930s and 40s Universal monster movies again this year of
Oh, they're-
2025.
they're great.
And catch
When-
up on them. We
when-
should cover them someday.
The originals are really a nice. I don't know. You gotta like old school filmmaking if you're gonna have any appreciation for them. But
So I got another one here. I just saw the trailer for this, made by a director I've always really admired, Steven Soderbergh, who's been around since the 90s, a very versatile experimental director. Well, he's made a haunted house movie that kind of has a hook that surprisingly, it seems at first like nobody's ever used this hook, and the hook is you're seeing a haunted house movie from the perspective of the ghost, not the perspective of the people who are moving into the haunted house, but of the ghost that's there.
interesting.
I would actually quote
Is it-
another film that
But it's
came out.
dark. It's taken
Horror
as a
film.
ghost that.
Yep, it's like a typical haunted house film, but it's
Interesting.
just from the perspective of the
But I wonder
the
how
spirit.
they convey the intentions of the evil
That's what
spirit.
I'm so
and
curious
if-
about. And
Whose side are you on in that?
I'm
you
so
know?
curious because Steven Soderbergh directing it, he's such a unique and interesting director that I'm curious what he'll do with that motif.
Can I bring up something a little, I know, tangent, but while it popped in my head, 'cause I
Yeah.
really wanted to say it. Lately, I have been stuck on watching all of the old Twilight Zone episodes, the original Rod Serling ones. And the more you watch them and really
Talk about
take
timeless.
them in, well, that's the thing. You start to realize that, like, everything stems from like these episodes. There's so many horror, sci-fi, fantasy, threads that get like really explored more by other filmmakers. And we've brought up before how, like, when we were talking about Poltergeist, there was a whole episode about the girl going into the wall and the parents pulling her out. It's like, it's pretty much Poltergeist. Then I got reminded that there's another episode that is almost exactly like Poltergeist 2, where a boy who's really attached to his grandmother, she dies, and she starts communicating to him through a toy telephone in the room. And it's creepy as fuck, because like the grandmother's literally like, she knows she's dying, and she's like, Billy, I just wish you could die with me so I wouldn't be alone. And you're like, and then he tries to like drown himself. It's just crazy, but you just start to see all of these parallels. All of the,
Just looping back to that
Yeah.
movie Presence I was talking about, that Steven Soderbergh movie,
Yeah.
the ghost movie.
Yeah.
There is a movie that came out a few years back that was by the director David Lowery that I believe is just called Ghost Story. And it's basically that exact idea. It's much more of an arty film than a horror film. But Casey Affleck plays this ghost. And for the whole movie, Casey Affleck is in the movie with one of those sheets over his body. Like the traditional, old school look of a ghost.
Yep.
And he does his whole performance from underneath, like you don't ever see him.
Right.
And he plays a ghost. And that's, I think it has something to do with lost love and other elements. But it's certainly not a horror movie. But when I've heard people online talking about this upcoming movie by Steven Soderbergh as like, no one's ever done that concept. Well, that David Lowery film is, for argument's sake, similar in concept, but as terms of a horror movie motif, I'm so excited to see what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
I got another one here. 28 years later, coming out in 2025. Have you seen the other two? 28 days later and weeks later?
I remember having those on DVD. I'm curious to see, I always have a little apprehension when somebody waits so long to pick something back up. Can it feel like you're still there?
Well, when
Can
you get the original director
no, I
and
know,
writer,
you hope.
you
hope.
get Danny Boyle
But I don't
and
think
Alex
it's a
Garland.
guarantee. You know what I mean? I definitely curious. Definitely want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. The trailer for 28 Years Later, in my opinion, is the best trailer of any movie of
Do you
2024.
think that corpse that you kind or zombie guy
It's
you see
not
coming up
no
is supposed
because
to be?
the actor that actually, if you saw the 28 Years Later trailer,
Yeah.
there's a shot where a infected person that's very emaciated stands up in a field, and immediately people thought, well, that looks just like the actor Cillian Murphy, who was the lead character of Jim from the first movie. Well, is this Jim's fate? Was he infected? And well, it turns out that is actually just an actor who has come forward and said, no, that's actually me.
Yeah.
But that could still be a ruse. And because the person who came forward is not a professional actor, he's an art gallery owner that knew the director, Danny Boyle. So he could just be diverting people's attention from this fact. Imagine if 28 years later, think of 28 Days Later, the movie. It opens up with Cillian Murphy's character Jim waking up in a hospital, much like the very opening of The Walking Dead, and realizing the whole world's gone to shit, right? And yet he doesn't know what happened because he was in a coma. So the whole opening of 28 Days Later is just Cillian Murphy kind of wandering around a apocalyptic London. Imagine if the opening of 28 Years Later is the infected version of Cillian Murphy just wandering those same streets, but now like essentially a zombie.
Yeah.
It's just a thought I had, but it's probably not Cillian Murphy. But if you guys have not watched the 28 Years Later trailer, it is a work of art. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. It's actually become almost like a meme, the idea that trailer is so impactful. So check it out. Let's see if I can think of Come on, guys. Can somebody call? Call. I mean, this is embarrassing. Not one other person will call and say Happy New Year, you two? You two fruits?
We got up to 34,000 subscribers.
And we get one phone call.
Herb, thank you.
I mean, thank you, Herb. We love you. The rest of
I'm
you
still
are on
holding
my S list right now.
Still holding out hope for spooky Halloween gal.
Okay, so we have a.
Wait,
go
I
ahead.
just
Go
really
ahead.
I had to say, I meant to bring it up.
That.
This was from Mike Hatfield too.
Christmas present.
Again, back to old school, the most important movie, superhero movie ever, VHS. Again, we talked about our love.
Beautiful. Put that sound up to the microphone. Put that sound up to the microphone. Oh.
I mean, it's so
we
good.
started this episode bashing nostalgia, and now we're basking in it.
Because this is even like early for VHS when they came in these big cases before they were just like slipping out of cardboard boxes. This is great. Thank you, Mike. I can't even tell you how much I love
really,
this.
really, really, really kind of you. Let's. You know what, Joe and I, when we saw, I think it was Terrifier 3, we saw a trailer for a movie from the creators of that movie Barbarian, great movie from 2022. It was called Companion.
Oh, wait, we got a call.
Oh, let's take this call. We've got a caller. Very exciting.
Ask them to unmute themselves. I think I just did that. They should unmute, and then we should hear them, I'm hoping.
Just unmute yourself, caller.
And we are going to...
There
Boom.
we go.
Here we are.
Are you there?
Yes, sir. How are y'all?
Hello. Who's this calling?
This is Swaggy G.
Yeah!
Swaggy G.
Happy New Year, brother!
Hey, thank you for the card.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was so
no
nice
problem.
of you. To actually send physical mail, that like goes right to the heart.
I literally got more Christmas cards from our listeners than my family.
Oh, I totally believe that.
I'm just saying it.
I totally get that.
Anyway.
No, that was super, super, super thoughtful of you. You've been there and always been so supportive and kind to us. And well, what is your first name? I think it was on the card, wasn't it? Well, tell me this. What is your favorite Friday the 13th film?
I mean, I know your previous caller said the final chapter, which I think everybody agrees on that. It's pretty good. But, one thing I do like, I know this might be a little bit controversial here, but I like Jason Goes to Hell.
Okay.
Wow. Now, why is that?
I just remember whenever that came out, at the time, I thought that was such a big deal. And they obviously took the movie in such a different direction, created all this lore that didn't exist. But the special effects of that are pretty good.
Now, was that like around the time where you were first like seeing a Friday the 13th
Exactly.
movie in the theater?
I was going to ask, how
Yes,
old were you?
exactly.
Yeah.
And isn't it
Yeah.
funny
I was
how
just
that
say, yep.
we've talked about this on Haddonfield Radio before, how
Yeah.
a lot of times your favorite film of these series are the one that you kind of bonded with first
Right.
as an audience member. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah, because the first one I actually saw in the theater was Jason X,
Ooh.
Interesting.
cool.
I
which
feel like
that one's not very good, but
But it must have been fun to
Anyway.
see at that time in the theater. It must have been exciting at that time.
oh yeah, that was a huge deal. Seeing was it Uber Jason?
Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was like part robotic and stuff.
I
So
feel like Jason X is having like a slight
Little resurgence.
resurgence. I know a lot of Friday 13th fans that suddenly are like giving it a little love and doing a lot more cosplay and whatnot. I don't know.
Well, I think it's funny you bring up Jason Goes to Hell and you bring up Jason X. I would argue that those are two of the bigger swings of the Friday the 13th
Yeah,
franchise.
definitely,
And I think there is something charming about Jason X. I think if you watch that movie after having a few drinks with your buddies, you would have a great time, even if it was a repeat viewing. It's just a fun Jason outing.
I actually really like the opening where they've got him. He's in
Oh,
the
that's a
tank
great
and everything.
opening.
Oh my god. Oh, it's so good.
And Jason Goes to Hell
oh yeah,
for
you got
me.
David Cronenberg in that.
David
from-
Cronenberg,
Yeah.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And now tell me what else? Tell us something. Like, where are you calling from?
I'm in Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's still early for everybody. We got like 6 minutes before midnight.
Oh, it's
over here.
almost midnight.
And everybody else is still probably got
Good
like
Lord.
an hour.
I
That's
can't
good.
believe it's almost midnight.
Oh my god, this is so cool to talk to everybody.
Yeah, this is it. This is my.
Yeah, I want to say thank y'all for all the work y'all do. Y'all have a great show.
Oh, thank
and
you.
The input and the insight that y'all give, it's provided me with hours of entertainment.
Oh, that is what makes me feel really good, because I've said it before, even today. Joe and I really take it very, very seriously in terms of our pride. Really, the first question is always, is what we're doing entertaining? Are we creating valuable entertainment? If someone is like you, an intelligent, deep dive fan, is going to give their time to something we've created when you could be doing 100 other things even outside of media, it is of the utmost importance to us that we're trying always to make something that is entertaining and fun. And to hear that makes me feel really good.
Absolutely. I mean, even whenever you guys dissect and break down a trailer, I think that's pretty fascinating.
Oh,
You know,
I
so-
love doing that too. So
Well,
I'm glad to hear
we
that.
try hard not to do what just everyone else is doing or the same approach.
Well, I think a lot of it
anyway,
is Joe and I we've always just been just doing what we've been doing, that we haven't really paid much attention to what other people are doing.
I really go out of my way not to listen to what other
just doing what we're
podcasters
doing.
have said, so that I don't end up
Just in
having
our
that in
own
my
world.
head. But it
yeah, it
means
means
a
a
lot
lot.
to hear from people like you and to get cards from people like you. It's
Let me hit you with another one. What was your favorite horror movie you watched in 2024?
Oh yeah, I know y'all hit on a lot of those. Obviously, Smile 2 is really good. Oddity,
Yes.
I thought was excellent.
Yeah, it
The
was.
Devil's Bath, that's another
Whoa,
one that y'all
whoa!
should
I
check
didn't
out.
see that one. What? Say that one again.
The Devil's Bath.
Ooh,
It's on Shudder.
I'm literally
there
gonna
we go.
watch that tomorrow.
there we go.
I love when I
Yeah,
love
it's
when
not
I hear
it's
things
not
like
one that you're gonna feel good about at the end, but
that.
it's done
I'm all for that.
very well.
I'm all for it. I
Yeah,
like all
it's-
different kinds of emotions when it comes to art.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm all for that. Well,
But-
I really appreciate myself that having something to look forward to watching now.
Yeah, give it a shot. I mean, it's supposedly based on some real events that has happened in
Ooh, even
history.
Oh,
better.
that's
so.
even better.
even
Yeah,
better.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say how much, as 2024 is coming to a close, how much we really genuinely appreciate you. And it's so nice to hear your voice. Sending a Christmas card, being a gentleman like that, you really don't know how much that means to Joe and I. And it's you have a place of honor in our hearts for your wonderful support of our creativity. And I on behalf of both of us, really, really appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all. I really appreciate it, and hope y'all have a good new year and continue success.
I hope you'll
Thank
enjoy
you.
season 3 too. Keep listening.
Yeah.
Ab-
Oh, sorry. Oh, I think I cut him off.
Well, thank you. We
Yeah,
love you so much.
we do, and I have your address. We're gonna mail you out something.
Yeah, you're getting a sticker for
I'm
sure.
going to end this at this moment.
we'll end it.
We can
always come back to it
just
if
the
you
call section. We're not
We could always come back for one more
hitting the
call.
show. Yeah, we will.
We have 3 minutes to go, and it's about to be midnight. It's going to be 2025. If you have any last-minute things you want to do in 2024, and you're on the East Coast of the United States, I'd say you pretty much frickin' better do it right the F now.
And for this upcoming year from us, obviously we're going to be spending a lot of time with Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And we are going to be starting a second show towards the end of January. We've talked about the video vault. So we're going to have a lot of content coming your way, more and more as the year builds.
I mean, we are really, really, really determined to make season 3 the uber season of Haddonfield Radio. We are putting so much effort and thought and time into it specifically to make these episodes, hopefully, like I said a minute ago, as entertaining as they can be for you guys, the fans of these movies, just like we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that connection, that building between us and you guys, and just as mutual fans and learning so much about movies from you guys, that is what it's all about for us.
This one's fun too because I'm learning a lot about Friday the 13th. I wasn't
I have to
well
say-
versed in the lore, but now learning more and more. And hey, early fun fact for episode 2, I learned that Wes Craven was brought in to help film the Pamela Voorhees, flashback scenes.
What?
That you see during Friday the 13th Part 2. Yeah. You need to
I haven't
call in
found that
a
fact yet.
favor from,
I was
from
gonna say,
Cunningham's old buddy there.
that
and
is
those
so
close-ups
cool.
of her were shot by
Wes
Craven.
oh my God, that's an awesome fun fact.
Fun fact. There you go.
That's a nice little fun fact in advance for episode 24.
And we're
Coming
gonna
up next.
try to release these new episodes on the 13th of every month, for obvious reasons. Hopefully, life doesn't get in the way, and we can keep up with that. But that's going to be our intent. If you're wondering when the Friday 13th episode.
By the way, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
If you are where we are on the East Coast of the United States, it's happy 2025
That's
time.
it.
Let's have another sip of
We're
the
doing it.
beverage.
We're gonna-
Let's clink.
Let's clink.
We didn't kiss on the lips.
Well, that's okay.
Should we?
That's okay.
We will if we want. Do you guys want us to? Because we will.
Christian's sleeping over tonight.
It's
so
2025 after all. It's progressive.
I'm gonna find you in my bed later.
I'm sleeping over. Slumber party in the basement. Slumber party at Joe's. And we talked earlier of how when I sleep places I haven't been before, I have night terrors. So get ready. It's going to be a lot of fun for you and your family tonight. Happy New Year! Christian's covered in imaginary spiders.
And for everybody that is still with us, here is your special treat. We are gonna show you. Here we go.
The basement tour!
I'm gonna take my headphones
We've been
off.
promising this for so long.
You're gonna have to narrate this. for
Okay, so
everybody.
Joe is going to
As-
take
as
you
we
guys
go
on a
through.
special
Finish this way?
journey
Yes, we can.
across the basement. You can even go all the way in and show them where we record.
I can show everything.
So this, what you're seeing here, Joe literally has made most of these literal one-to-one actual replica costumes from the Star Wars universe. Joe does a lot of conventions where he does a lot of charity work using C-3PO, R2-D2, and all these other characters, literally to support charities and to make money for charities. He doesn't like to talk too much about that, but it's a big part of what he does. But everything you're seeing on screen right now was created and manufactured over the years by Joe.
That's right from Boston Dynamics. Right?
And that is an actual Boston Dynamics robot that Joe, what's the word, customized to create a Star Wars kind of paradigm to it. But what you're seeing is all different, works in progress, and a painting of Joe's wife on the wall over there. And this droid, what was his name?
8D8.
AD8? 8D8. Okay, that's a nerd. And here's this character. His name was Goldenrod, I think, C-3PO. And who else do we have? You can tell me some of these other names.
Oh well, we got a Zuck ruckus type guy here.
You got his name is Dr. Freaky. And the little one, go down, go be massive. That little guy over there. No, up on the top of the thing.
This guy?
His name is Krill. And wait, you passed one. And there's this guy right here. You know what his name is? Dr. Shitstains. I don't know what my name is. I don't know what that didn't make any sense.
right.
That was ridiculous. No, go show him where we record the actual episodes every week.
I can't. There's.
You can't reach that all the way over there. You don't have a wire. It's wireless. It's a cell phone. Hello. We're gonna show you where we actually record our episodes of Haddonfield Radio. That's a mess. Well, here's a mess. There's Art the Clown that was from the Halloween last live stream. This is where we sit. This is what the screen we're looking at when we're watching the movie, recording the episodes. This is what we're looking at. Show them the stools. Are they out there? There's Joe's chair. Those are his three. There's the Michael Myers that's in the season 1 thumbnail that we're standing together with. A lot of 3D printed stuff Joe has made with his crazy 3D. Let me tell you a quick 3D printer story about Joe. Joe wasn't getting what he wanted out of a 3D printer, so he 3D printed a 3D printer. Put that in your hat and wear it. Go stand on your head and spit those nickels. So you're seeing a lot of these 3D printers, which I know absolutely nothing. That one looks like it's working. And that's right where we sit when we're recording. Joe, what are you doing? Where are you going? You're not a good cameraman. No, you don't have to come back. I'll take it from here. No big whoop. We're good with you. So this is it. We've been promising that basement tour, and accidentally today Joe figured out how to do it.
Wow. Hold
So
on.
that's-
Let's turn that back off. Hey.
And here we go. So there you go. We've been promising that for a long time. That's our little early 2025 gift to you. A look at Joe's dirty, messy old basement.
I know. I can't believe
What
I
a
just.
blast!
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I bet you were back down to 1,500 subscribers.
Ooh, I know. Right. I know.
No, this has been so much fun, guys.
They're gonna be like, maybe you should focus more on the show instead of building robots. Oh wow, wow! I think I just hit a nerve
Yeah,
there.
well, you know,
Hey,
and I just want to say
shit.
I have absolutely nothing to do with those robots. I don't know how to make things. I can't use a normal printer with the
hey,
paper in it. Never
yeah,
mind a 3D
well-
printer.
Yeah. Well.
No, honestly, sincerely though, if you've taken time out of your busy New Year's Eve and busy life, period, to join us down here in Joe's basement for the last 3+ hours,
Yeah.
shooting the shit and talking about movies and having fun and celebrating 2024 with us, and all the fun that we've had this year, not only making these Haddonfield Radio episodes, but literally the real fun has been getting to know you guys. And I have to admit, I really look forward to these live streams because it's loose and it's just you guys. A lot of people might watch these live streams after they air, and that's great. And we want you guys out there and our listeners in the future to know, obviously, we love you and appreciate you too. But having you guys in the present here with us, taking time out of your schedule to join us means a lot. Am I right?
Yes, I can't tell you guys how much we appreciate it. I mean, I know we always say it, but we didn't imagine any of this. We were doing this completely as a lark to sort of think that we're talking to people.
I mean,
who
you have to realize our first 5 episodes when they were airing in real time, we had no subscribers and no listeners other than my mom. Literally.
Yeah. I
And
know.
so we were Joe and I were always thinking about is let's just keep our heads down and lay down the track. Just keep
Just
laying
have
the
fun.
track.
It was just
It
like
was
if
just
we're,
for-
if
it
we're
was like
having fun doing it, then we'll keep doing it.
And we're still having fun.
Yeah. Last chance to call in. Well, if
One
you
more
want,
call. Come on. We're giving a giveaway.
One last one.
You know, honestly, if we don't get 6 calls, if you want one of these cool things,
Yeah, just email us.
We'll send you one.
The first 6 people that I get an email
But
from.
they'll never be available again. And
I don't know how often we're going to autograph things. Not that anyone wants our autographs.
because it's not necessary.
well,
Nobody
it's
cares. I think Mike Hatfield's autograph is actually cool because it's his art.
Yes,
But
yeah.
who the F are we?
I know.
We're in your basement in Rhode
And
Island.
I'm only doing it because Mike asked us to
I'm
do
celebrating
it,
New
but,
Year's Eve with you. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I love you guys and I love Joe and I love beating up on Joe for your entertainment.
Wait,
That's
what?
all.
What?
I've been doing it for 30 years.
know,
I'm not
I
going to
know.
stop now.
It's
I
my
just-
lot in life.
I just really hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoyed talking about some of these great films. I mean, you guys saw The Devil's Path. I mean,
Yeah.
he mentioned one that I haven't even.
Devil's Bath?
The Devil's Bath.
There you
yes.
go.
He mentioned a film I haven't even seen that's probably one of the better films of last year. So
Yeah.
you guys have probably seen a lot. Do us a favor. If we missed some movies from 2024 that you loved, just go in the comment section of this video. It's going to be under the live tab forever.
Yeah.
Let us know some of the things that you loved, movies, books, comics. 2024, if you found some stuff, I got to tell you, you want to read an amazing comic book. Speaking of DC Comics, there was a one-off released a couple months ago through DC. I've always loved the character of Lobo. He's kind of like, in my opinion, like DC's Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just actually cast Jason Momoa to play him in live action. I think it's kind of too obvious, the casting, but all right.
I was just about to say obvious.
Yeah, but the Lobo comics, I haven't really caught up with them, but I used to love them when I was a teenager because they were irreverent and funny and dark. Well, they just released DC Comics. It was called the Lobo Cancellation Special, and it's just a one-off comic, just a fun little Lobo adventure, written by a really great comic book artist, a comic book writer named Kyle Starks. So check that out if you love comics. It's full of like hyper violence and humor. It's classic Lobo. If you like that character and you like, 90s era DC Lobo, you will love this. It was actually my favorite comic book of 2024. That and Junji Ito released a book called Uncanny this year. That was sort of like his autobiography mixed with more of his manga, his horror, a Japanese horror manga. And that was also my other favorite kind of comic book of the year. So I wanted to mention those. Because books are very important to me.
Yes, Spooky Halloween Gal, you will get something in the mail, of course, no problem.
Yep, you'll be getting one of those for sure.
And Sandy, thank you for loving the tomfoolery and shenanigans. There will always be some on our live streams. I like being able to get a little loose on the...
James Cooper, I just want to say,
Whoa,
love
whoa.
from London. We send so
Hey.
much love back to London. Happy 2025 to you, brother. We love you. I love that someone with an awesome British accent is listening to us babble incessantly in your basement. I love it. I'd rather hear you babble incessantly, James, to be honest with you. Start a podcast.
We love you guys. I
No,
love you
seriously.
guys.
And for all of you, again, that have taken time to check out the Friday the 13th episode we released this month, that has meant the world to us. Your support, we say it all the time because it's really, really true, and we can't say it enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting our creativity here at Haddonfield Radio. We really do love you guys. Yeah. Anything else?
That's it. No.
Thank you to your wife, Jen, for allowing
I
us to
know.
take over her house on New Year's Eve. But,
Yeah, I know.
appreciate you.
Well, we're at that age now. where,
Happy New Year, Mom and Wally.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. We love you guys.
We love you
Thank
guys.
you.
Happy New Year to you, really, seriously.
And we are gonna end. I'm gonna go back to the title card, and I'm gonna play our song again for
Just
everybody.
throw it out
so
there
you know
again.
that
Let's
it's-
throw a
it
little
was
cringe
us
song out
back
there.
in our younger days of
This
rocking
is back
out.
like 20-something years ago. So
we
when used to do
didn't even
bands.
use our real names for this back
No.
then. But anyway,
But, yeah, we love you.
guys.
Thank you for joining us here for the Happy Horror Days Part 2 live stream special. I can't wait for Part 3 next year. Maybe we'll be covering Smile 3. Who knows? But anyway,
what
check
are we
out
gonna
these
do after
movies.
Friday? What's season 4 gonna be?
I actually have started to
I have some
percolate.
thoughts, too. I
I've
have some
started to
thoughts, but
percolate.
we'll figure it out.
There will be you know what? Let's give one big announcement for this live stream. There absolutely, categorically will be a season 4
God,
of
yeah.
Haddonfield Radio.
Oh God, yeah, definitely.
So anyway, let's enjoy season 3 together. Please, guys, I promise you it's going to be a fun season. We've got a lot of fun things planned, a lot of surprises. So
Hey, we started out with Kane Hodder.
if you're in,
You know,
yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
was- that
Thank
was
you
a-
so much to Kane Hodder.
A little.
Oh my God, I would have.
surprise.
I would have been so depressed if I forgot to mention that live. Thank you to Kane Hodder
Yeah.
for taking time out of his busy life and schedule to literally record an intro for our little episode. That meant the world to us. Thank you, sir. You're a legend, literally. So yeah,
Oh, that's it.
that's it. We'll be back
Happy New
for
Year.
our listeners in the present. We'll be seeing you within the next week or two.
Hey, we're in the future to all the West Coasters.
Oh, that's true. We are in the future.
We're in 2025
But
already.
hopefully on the 13th of January, right around there, if not on the 13th, we'll be releasing the next episode of Haddonfield Radio, episode 24, which will be our deep dive the history, legacy, and lore of Steve Miner's Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981. And what a year 1981 was for horror. Very interesting year when we go over the landscape. Fascinating. So yeah, a lot to talk about for that episode. My stuff I'm getting into researching, really cool stuff. So I'm excited. Excited to talk about baghead killers, sackhead killers, whatever that whole motif. A lot of fun. Dark Night of the Scarecrow. Couple others.
And a little R.I.P. to Olivia Hussey from
Olivia Hussey
Black
passed away.
Christmas.
Yep.
You know, that was
Rest in peace.
Anyway,
You must be
Had to mention
thrilled to be off of this planet finally.
all right, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.
We
will
love you.
see
Happy
soon.
2025.
Happy
Thank you. We
2025.
love you, and we'll see you next time.